Boyd, I'm sorry I couldn't come up with a better introduction for you, but I was working on a short time. There was a live band up here, and they were taking equipment down, and it was a madhouse, but we got some sanity back on the air when we have Boyd on the radio station. So appreciate you.
That's cool. That's cool, and it was easy to get through. So
yeah,
most of it as well.
Yeah, well, this guy, I thank you for the introduction, sir. You can call back during the interview, or you can listen and call back a little later, and we'll get some of that music on for you.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was a lame introduction to an extreme artist, and I'm going to have to duck out now. Yeah,
Okay, we'll take introductions for him throughout the show. So if anyone wants to do a pretty good jaw-dropping, knock him out, drag him back in introduction to Boyd Rice, then feel free, and we will let you introduce him properly onto the radio station.
Hey, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I don't wish. I just put it out there, Boyd. It's not one of my 3 wishes, but...
Nice.
Okay, sir. Thank you for calling in. Okay, we do have Boyd Rice, and a little embarrassed about the introduction, but we're going to have to make do with what we got here. And we have him calling in. We had him on earlier in the year, sort of as a guest appearance, and I wanted to have him back for where we focus mainly on him and his pursuits and his leisure time activities and his downtime and his uptime and his arrival. And he's now on WCSB airwaves at 1:36 in the morning here on Eastern Time. And I will be taking calls throughout the night if you have something to say to him. You can call up, but first let's get started. Don't call in for about a good 15, 20 minutes till we get this rolling. And then when I'm struggling to keep up with the answers that Boyd give, I would accept calls to fill in the gaps, which will probably be there. So first of all, Boyd is calling from his home in the Denver, Colorado area. Is this right?
That is correct, yes.
I don't want to get any more specific than that because I can't. I don't know too much about the area. I've been to my uncle's house. He lived in, what's that thing called, Colorado Springs? Is that near Denver? Or is that a half hour from Denver?
Yeah, that's about a half hour, 45 minutes. It's not terribly far. Well, it's more than that, but I mean, it's a nice ride.
There's a lot of new developments when I was there in 2006, like new housing things. You could tell they ripped down some stuff and just bulldozed a place and put in a lot of new housing. And I noticed there wasn't any telephone wires. They were underground in the place I was at. It was right near Pikes Peak. You could see it right outside of the window in that area.
Oh, yeah.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I went to those arches, and I saw that kissing camel and those what are those red rocks called, Godin of the Gods or Goddess of the Gods?
Oh, yeah, those are great. Those are great.
Yeah, there's some great jogging activity, and some people were climbing the mountains climbing the rocks with these mountain climbing things. A lot of younger kids were into that. A very active community out there.
I don't know if that's such a good idea.
You're right there in the heart of this. Do you ever partake in any of that kind of fitness activity, like climbing up, rock climbing, or going jogging in the Garden of the Goddesses, or whatever that's called?
No.
Not into that.
Last time I went rock climbing was probably 30 years ago, and I got all the way to the top of this peak, and I put my hand up there, and I pulled myself up, and there was a coiled rattlesnake looking right at me. And it took me about 10 minutes to get up this thing, and it took me about 1 minute to get down. I'm lucky I didn't break my neck.
Yeah, you're lucky that you didn't get the little tongue action from the coiled mess.
There was tongue action, but he didn't seem terribly upset by my presence. I mean, he wasn't rattling or anything. He was just he sort of turned his head and looked at me, and I could see the tongue going in and out, and I just sort of ran down the side of these rocks. But,
that doesn't sound like the first experience you've had with a creature of the night. I've read in a reading of yours that you had experience with rats in your younger days, and I think that sounds. Yeah. The snake episode you described sounds nothing like what you had to deal with when you found yourself in a lair full of rats when you fell 6 feet or something and walking in pitch black.
No, yeah, that's. Rats really don't like being disturbed. I mean, rattlers don't like being disturbed, but they, generally, they've got that rattle thing. So if you're wandering around the desert and you get within a number of feet of them, you hear that and you go in the opposite direction because they really don't want to encounter you. So,
do rats do anything? Do rats do any thing saying caution, I'm here? Or is it nothing?
Well, they can, depending on how high dominance they are, they can shriek this really god-awful shriek. And, I had one, I described it in the book, where I shined a light in a corner, and this rat came up, and he had, fur missing from his butt and stuff. So he looked really diseased, and he was giant. He must have been the king rat of the whole layout. And he, shrieked at me, and he actually just leaped off this little mound and started chasing me. And most rats will go in the opposite direction.
So there was
Unless
something
the hole I fell in. I was in their domain, so they were, it was all that fight or flight instinct, and they didn't want to flight. They just wanted to.
They wanted to take you on. You're the invader.
Yeah.
And it sounded, the way you described it, I guess in that book or it was an interview I read you saying this, it sounded like that scene in Indiana Jones when he was standing, I think it was the second one, Temple Doom, when he's walking and all the cockroaches and the snakes are coming out of the wall. He doesn't realize it until he puts the torch down that it's all around him. So I just pictured a scene sort of like that, a little bit of Hollywood magic, but it was real. An intersection that we had with Boyd Rice, who is author and writer and... Do you mind being called a musician or with the non, or what do you call?
No,
what do people call you? People call you a sound musician or a noise guy. I mean, what is it that you accept as a description for the music that you make?
I don't know. People make up all sorts of descriptions. I don't mind musician, but and for the past, I don't know how many years, what I've done is more musical and noisy, because I started off being absolute noise, and then I sort of, got a bit more subtle, and a bit more subtle, and a bit more subtle, and now I've just recorded an album where I go back to just straight pure noise. So I don't know. Did you feel
the return to that kind of that the earlier style, the more abrasive stuff, or was this something that you felt maybe it's time to re-explore this, or what made you decide to go back to that kind of direction with your releases?
I don't know. I was having a discussion with somebody, and they were, lauding me or something and saying I've invented an entire field of music, that there was no such thing as noise. Well, there was obviously noise music before I started, but I mean, I'm the only person who's devoted 33 years of their life to noise music. And they're saying, when I started, there weren't sections in stores for noise music CDs and that sort of thing. And I was thinking, well, yeah, it's like I really, really like noise, and I should return to my roots because, I kind of stopped doing it because the market was flooded with a lot of noise, and it wasn't like the noise I made. It was where somebody buys a synthesizer or something and, make a bunch of weird noises, and I just like, I bet I could go back and do something that would be pure noise, and it would still sound completely different to all this noise music that's flooding the market. So that was sort of my intention, and that's what I did. And the album is called Back to Mono, and it will be coming out sometime in the fall to coincide with the tour I'm doing over in Europe.
Oh, you're doing an actual tour and album release, and you're starting over in which country?
I'm starting in Moscow.
Have you ever been to Russia before?
No. I've been asked over and over and over again, but I guess it's much more decent now. I knew people that went over there 10 years ago and said it was nightmarish, Aeroflot. I guess Aeroflot Airlines is much better now than they were 10, 15 years ago, because I knew a lot of people who had gone to Russia, and they said, You get on this airplane, and there are people holding goats and roosters and chickens and stuff. And this is just, they said, whatever you do, don't ever travel on Aeroflot.
It sounds like it sounds like taking a bus in rural Mexico or something, of people holding chickens on it. But on an airplane, that's unheard of. So.
Not in Mexico, but I guess now it's like supposed to be as good as any other major European airlines. I guess they've made strides.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say something else, like the clubs or disasters with people when they landed or border guards, but the actual flight over was the starting point of the horror back then.
Yeah, well, and especially because, it's like there are all these people want me to do a one-off show there, and now I guess it's different. That it used to be, if I wanted to fly to Russia, that would be like a 24-hour journey where I'd go to, New York and to London and to Sweden or Helsinki and then to, and it was just, I can't imagine being in transit 24 hours, especially on some substandard airlines.
Now, this are you going to just be playing that one date in Russia, or do you have other things lined up in that country?
I don't know. Other people are taking care of this, so I'm not in touch with the promoters, but it might be Moscow and St. Petersburg. I would assume that if I'm going to go all the way there, they do both of those, but then there might be things in Estonia and places like that that are very close to there, but I played Lithuania, but not Latvia or Estonia, and be ashamed to be over there and not do that.
So I would take it you're excited to go here. You've never been to this part of the world, and probably bring along your camera and bring a lot of the sites back and share them with others. I guess your experiences over there. It's pretty exciting to go over somewhere like that.
It's good, and I'm told somebody mentioned something, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but somebody told me the promoter over there might be manufacturing Boyd Rice dolls to sell at the concert. So if I get to go to Russia and have my own Boyd Rice doll,
So you buy a ticket. You buy a ticket.
My years.
You buy a ticket. You buy a ticket. You get a doll, or is it extra? You go in, you see the concert,
it's
and then
probably extra.
Yeah. It's too good to get a doll with the price of admission. You have to pay a little extra to get that Boyd Rice doll.
Yeah, and I think the Russians are getting hip. I know a bunch of people who've gone over there, and they said that they're very professional, and it's it's like everything is great. The hotel room is great. The meals are great, and a decade ago that wasn't the case. I don't know if you ever read the Mark Allman autobiography, but he went to Russia, and it was like a nightmare. And every kind of soup he got had cockroaches or other kind of bugs in it. And one of his friends actually died during the visit. That's how miserable it was.
Yeah, that sounds
and
pretty
he's thinking,
low.
wow, this will be really exciting. Russia, how exotic. They were communists just a short while ago. And then he gets there, and it's like, it costs £10 to buy an orange, and the orange is all dried out,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really can't imagine, even though I'm trying. But I would still like to see that part of the world. I've really not been too far out of here. But performers like yourself get to go in different areas of the world. But I'm wondering, do you have off days to yourself, or is it strictly, you get in, you perform, do a sound check or whatever, just hang out in the hotel, or do you actually can hit some of the spots to check out historic sites or things like that? Do you have this planned, or is it just whatever you have time for?
Well, I hope so, because I've done one, I wrote a tour diary of it. The tour I did. It was the best tour I ever did because we had a couple days off between various shows. Because a lot of times, in the past, you just show up to some place you've wanted to go your entire life, and it's just you stay in the motel room and then hotel room, that is, and then go to the venue, and then you're lucky to get 3 hours sleep, and then you're off the next day, early morning. So I've had both though. I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've been all over the world. So and I know and I've seen a lot of my favorite stuff. There's sort of off the beaten path. So,
I'm sure.
sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's great.
Yeah.
People just assume that it's like one big long party.
No.
and I hate to disabuse them of that or whatever, but
You've had a lot of product been put out over the last 3 years or so. You've had a book put out called Twilight Man. I haven't read that one yet. Is that concentrating more on in the San Francisco area time period, or what is the Twilight?
Yeah,
Man
that's where you'll find all the rat stories.
That's the rat story book. I must have read an excerpt of or something, or an interview talking about that.
Well,
excerpt.
people, ask me about it before it came out. People would ask me, "Well, what's this going to be like?" and tell me a story from this. And invariably, I tell the rat story because it's one of the rat stories. I mean, there are a bunch of rat stories in there, and funnily enough, there's a chapter in there where I describe my favorite restaurant being engulfed in flames, and me and my partner stopped the vehicle, and we went in and we ran all the it was just like a 3-story restaurant, and we got all the human beings out of there, and this place was on fire. If we hadn't happened on it, this place would have burned, and there would have been, dozens of people dead. And we put out this fire. And I wrote about this in a chapter of this book, and funnily enough, just last the 20th of April, this place closed down after exactly 100 years. And one of the reasons they gave for shutting this place down was that it was impossible for them to control the rat population. And every restaurant, I learned from being an alarm agent, every restaurant in Chinatown, no matter how fancy or expensive, they all have rats because there were these Tong tunnels, built by the Tong for white slavery and smuggling opium and stuff. And these tunnels are still down there, and they go to all the main stores that used to be run by the Tong. And even if you cement them over, rats can chew through cement. So it's like rats, there's like hundreds of thousands of rats living under Chinatown. And I met quite a bit of them when I was working in San Francisco on this job where I was an alarm agent in Chinatown.
You think that if you were Native American, your spirit animal might be in that family?
It's their spirit animal?
Well, Native Americans sometimes have that spirit animal thing where they have a spirit of a horse or something. Maybe yours was a rat or something along those lines, Boyd. You're having a lot of run-ins with these in this book. But that's ridiculous. Now, what you said is this restaurant burned down. You ran in and saved people like the mayor of New Jersey recently did, of Newark, New Jersey. Recently saved someone, and it was helping out it'll help out his campaign. Do you think that when this story becomes more known, that maybe in some areas the public opinion of you will change, and you'll have, Boyd Rice, hero, kind of. You're already a hero. You're already a hero to some people. You're an anti-hero to others. But just overall, maybe this one story will get some light and it will shine out, and people will like, wow, he saved people from that restaurant. And that's just an amazing. What was the restaurant called?
It's called Sam Wo.
Was that in San Francisco?
It's on. It's off Stockton Street. It's between Stockton and Grant, and I think it's Kearny.
It's in San Francisco, Chinatown. Correct?
Yeah, in Chinatown.
And it has a second floor, and there's a dumbwaiter that goes up, right?
Right.
And Boyd, can I tell you something? Do you honestly like the food there?
Yeah.
Can I tell you one thing? I went there in 2006 on a recommendation from a friend who said it was a really good, cheap place to get Chinese. And it was one of the top 5 worst places, in my opinion, for Chinese I've ever had in my life. I'm just the quality. I'm just saying that in my personal opinion, the quality of that restaurant was terrible. I know it's an institution in San Francisco because it's a place. They brought out water, and it was in a plastic pitcher, and it was kind of dirty. And they brought out the food. It was just very bland, and it just was. I just couldn't handle it. And someone ordered like a vegetarian soup, and it had chicken in it or pork, and it was a disaster. It just didn't taste good to me. But people liked the atmosphere, I guess. It was very almost not too accommodating. They didn't really have a lot of decoration and stuff like that. But at least I've been there. You just told me it closed down right now. Is that what you're saying? It just closed down?
It just closed down the 20th of last month. After being open for 100 years. So I can't say anything about the food you got, but I know we used to eat there all the time, and the food was great, and they gave you a lot, and it was inexpensive, and students from Berkeley would, go over on the BART just to, stretch their dollar to get the Sam Woe, and then they'd have enough left over for a couple more meals. They could reheat it.
Oh, yeah.
But when I went there, it was great. And it is known for having the world's rudest waiter. Yeah,
I heard about that. I read that they're very they're very snooty, and they'll bark at you, and they'll bring the stuff, but it'll be a little bit of attitude along with it, which is fine. I mean, it's the atmosphere. It's known for that. It was written in a tourist book, I think, and I think Conan O'Brien 7 years ago did a little skit there. And it was...
really?
Yeah, look it up on YouTube. You can look it up on YouTube. Type in Sam Woe Conan show, and he did I think he spent a week out in San Francisco, and he did a little skit on that restaurant. So it's amazing that you bring up this place that one of the few places that I can remember that I went to in San Francisco. One of the other ones was that garlic restaurant called Stinking Rose. Did you ever go there?
Oh, God, yeah.
What do you think?
Do you have the garlic wine?
No, I didn't have the garlic. Everything was garlic. It was very crazy. But you don't want to talk to people or hang out with people when you go there for another few days. But I guess it has its audience. A lot of people were there. That's funny that you saved Sam Woe from being burned down. That's a legendary story right there that I never heard.
Yeah, I did. The kitchen was engulfed in flame, and smoke was pouring out of it. And, it's like I go up and tell people, hey, the restaurant's on fire. You might want to leave. And they was like, but my food just came. If I go now, it'll be cold when I come back. I finally convinced people they were about to die, and they got out really quick, Wow. I was told, go up and clear out all the people. Don't panic anybody. But it's kind of hard not to panic people because it's 3 stories, it's like there's a couple floors, and where the people could smell smoke, it's like they realized I wasn't lying. But the top floor, it's like, nah, I'm not leaving, I'll take my chances.
Yeah, but how could if someone's serious with a serious face and, demeanor saying, there's a fire, you got to leave, what is going through their mind? They're not, they're waiting for their food. I don't understand how their minds work.
Yeah, well, welcome to my world. I don't understand how anybody's mind works at any given time.
But you're working on it.
The worst case scenario. It's like I know when people say things that I know aren't true, they're trying to make themselves look a little better. They're trying to make something look like it's not really their fault. So it's like I actually do understand what motivates people, but there's still things that make me wonder where I just go, what the...
You've had a lot of years studying the common man on the streets, in audiences, at your book readings, at autograph signings. I think there's a clip of you on the internet. It's kind of recent. I guess you're in, I don't know what country, but you're signing a book, and there's some woman trying to get your attention. I don't know if she's upset with you or if she's a bizarre fan, but the whole video is her trying to get close to you, and then they kind of escort her out. Do you know what that was about? It's some weird woman.
They didn't. Well, she was insane. but unfortunately, they didn't film that whole thing because she came up, and at first she was really friendly, and she was saying, "I don't know what kind of language I'm able to use on your program. Are there words that I shouldn't use?"
Let me just say, you listen to WCSB Cleveland. Portions of the following broadcast might be found objectionable by certain members of the listening audience. Therefore, WCSB Cleveland recommends listener discretion. Viewpoints expressed are for educational, entertainment purposes only, and don't reflect the school, staff, affiliates, or anyone else of Walrus Station. Proceed, Boyd Rice.
Okay, well, initially this woman came up, and she was acting kind of friendly, but she seemed strange still, and she was saying she wanted to, I'll just say, have sex with me. She said something different. And then she sort of let out, and I don't understand it, she thought that I was David Bowie, she said.
Oh, she thought you were David Bowie, she didn't think. Okay, she thought you were David Bowie for some reason.
She had no idea who I was. She was just wandering past this film festival where I was outside signing books for people, and she thought I was somebody, important, and then that morphed in her mind to I was David Bowie. And then she came up and started saying she wanted to have sex with me. And she started getting a bit weirder and weirder, and reached out and was touching my face. And the organizers just realized something was going sideways there. So they tried to escort her out, but she started kicking and screaming. So they had to have a bunch of people on her. But,
have you ever been mistaken for different people before, Boyd?
Yeah, it seems like that, but it was in the far distant past.
Okay, this is the more recent one. That's I guess I don't know how long ago that was.
Yeah, that was just last year.
Oh, pretty recent.
That was yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that might be a little weird, but it could have been worse. You could have been mistaken for someone that maybe not many people would know about. Being mistaken for Bowie could be a positive career move or something. You might sell a few more non records when it comes out. If a lot of these women think you're Bowie and they have access to you. Hi, you're on the radio station. We have Boyd Rice on the line. You're on the air. Oh boy. Oh Boyd. You're listening to WCSB, as I said before, and we are talking on the phone this hour to Mr. Rice. If anyone has a question, 687-3515. We're going to talk a lot about different subjects, different topics. I don't have any reason or rhyme to my questions, Boyd. I wrote down the different stuff. I just look at something and then I'll spit it out to you, and however that goes, I don't have it really organized. I didn't take time to rewrite things in different topics, so it's going to bounce all over the place. That's usually how I do questions or people on the air or whatever like this. The lines are filling up now, but let me ask a few questions to start out with. Were you ever in any high school clubs or groups? Were you ever a part of any sporting, like baseball, football, or I know you were a Cub Scout, but in high school, were you ever in any clubs like debate team or government or anything like that?
No, not that I can remember. I mean, me and my friends had our own fake outlaw biker gang that used to go around Lemon Grove, California, and create mischief.
Did you have actual motorcycles, or were these 10-speed bikes, or mountain bikes, or were there any bikes involved at all?
No, we just went around in cars. We just led the main newspaper guy in town and the guy at the Lemon Grove Sheriff's substation. We just led them to believe there was this weird outlaw biker group.
Did you have a name for it?
Yeah, well, again, it's okay. You'll have to. You'll have to have a disclaimer. We were called the Pig Fuckers.
There's no mistaking that with the Outlaws, Hells Angels, or the Warlocks, or whatever other big names are. There's no copyright infringement on that name. That's what I'm trying to say. That was a good pick.
It's funny because there were a lot of Hells Angels and Iron Horsemen in Lemon Grove, California, and my father was friends with the Angels and the Iron Horsemen, and very good friends. And but by the time we came up with the Pig Fuckers, I think the Horsemen and the Angels had sort of left, Lemon Grove.
Did you have any positive relations yourself with them? If your father was friends, did you come around and hang out with any of those bikers?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still dressing like those guys at times. I'm still, wandering around Denver with an iron cross hanging around my neck. Yeah, I have a lot of positive vibe. And, this was like the mid-'60s when all those Roger Corman movies came out. So when you saw 100 Hells Angels go down the main street of Lemon Grove, California, it was impressive. And they were like these young, groovy-looking guys with long hair and these goatees. And they're just like, you just thought, man, that's what I want to do when I grow up.
Did your dad ever go to any of their clubhouse parties or anything, or was it just
yeah.
He actually did. Yeah, wow, that's pretty impressive. Wow.
The weird thing is, my favorite uncle had this house that was on kind of a hillside in Casa de Oro, which is near Spring Valley and Lemon Grove. But the Angels clubhouse in Casa de Oro was right next to my uncle's house. So it's like we'd visit my uncle all the time, and invariably my dad would say, "Hey, I'm just going to see who's in at the clubhouse. I'll be right back. I won't be 10 minutes." And invariably he'd be a couple hours. And we're waiting to leave, and my mom's pissed off, and the relatives are sort of annoyed, and I get sent walking down this little dirt road to the clubhouse and knock on it, and it was like made out of corrugated, metal. It was something probably from World War II or something. And then a guy'd come to the door, and then he'd holler for my dad, and then we'd leave. So I had, he was friends with hot rodders. So I had a lot of exposure to, people customizing cars and guys building choppers, people making dragsters. But, Southern California, so, I don't think...
Yeah, but even back...
grown up in Colorado... What?
Oh, no, go ahead. Grown up and go ahead with what
I
you
was
said.
just going to say, if I grew up in Colorado, I doubt if I would have been exposed to the same things. But I happened to be in Southern California at this very happening time,
Did you realize back then that those people kind of were viewed by society as sort of fringe? Maybe you don't want to associate with these kind of people. They mean trouble when they come to town. Did you get that vibe back then, or were you just friends of your dad kind of thing?
No, I absolutely got that vibe because my father told me the most horrific things you can imagine. And he would tell these stories and he would laugh. And I would just be horrified. I'd just go, oh my God, that's terrible. But I knew all these guys, and they were funny and fun, and they were likable. And then I would hear, just something god-awful, and I just go, oh, geez.
Do you remember anything in particular, just one little tidbit your dad you might have heard him say to you? That
well, there was one guy, I forget what his name was, because I remember some of the names of some of these guys, but there was one guy who would always walk around, and he had a parrot that would ride on his shoulder. And this is horrible. And then some friend of his went, they were playing a game of pool, and the guy went and picked up the parrot and was holding the parrot on his hand, bit the parrot's head off, and spit it onto the middle of the pool table. And my dad laughed and laughed and laughed, and I was, as a child, horrified by that. I mean, even I'm probably more appalled by it now than I would have been then.
I think there's people. I think there's likewise people right now listening who are appalled by this story from however many years back that goes. That is something else.
That goes back to like 1967 or something. Probably 67 or 68.
Wow, that is back at that time. Do you remember any war protesters back then? Did you come in contact with any? The big protests that were going on at that time against Vietnam and all that?
Not really in Lemon Grove, California. I mean, there were there was graffiti in the underpass near the shopping mall that had said SDS and the Weathermen, and then it had sayings like "off the pigs" and these pseudo-revolutionary things. So I mean, there were people like that, but.
Were you interested in finding out about those kind of groups like SDS or Weatherman? Were you interested in them? Did you know what they were at that young age, or not at all? Or was it just something like that was just you saw as just graffiti on the underpass or overpass, wherever?
I knew what they were, but I had more. We would be driving down the freeway and see a van of Hell's Angels, and they'd have like weird slogans painted all over the side, and it was just like that stuff to me was much more interesting than people protesting the war.
Oh,
I was a little too young at the time. I was excited by the Manson family, and I was excited by Patricia Hearst, but I was really probably too young to understand that stuff. Maybe, I don't know.
But you started out with the bikers. Did anyone of them give you a ride up and down the street on a bike at all? Did you ride on the back or on the handlebars of one of them?
No, I didn't. But I mean, my friend knew a ton. I mean, my father knew a ton of his friends were these people, and I would go over to their house, and they would give me Kool-Aid, and make me. I've told the story over and over again, but it was a friend of my father's who first played me Martin Denny, and he made me sit down and listen to the entire thing, both sides, on headphones, so I could experience the full stereo separation.
Yeah, but I'm wondering when your version of "Dreams from My Father" is going to come out. I would like to read the Boyd Rice version of that. We're getting a lot of phone calls coming in. I wanted to ask one more question before I open it up. You're listening to WCSB Cleveland, of course. Anyone listening outside of the Cleveland, Ohio area, the area code is 216-687-3515. We have full lines right now, so hold off on calling until you hear me drop a call, and then we'll get a few more in. Why do you think that some people describe you as sort of a Renaissance man, and do you even like that term at all? It's kind of like, I don't know, I hear that put to a lot of different kind of people, and some people use it to describe you. Do you have a problem with that at all?
No, I think people say that, because Anton LaVey used to call me that. And I think it was just because it's like most of the time people who are well known for music, that's sort of all they do. They don't write as well, or they don't do paintings, they don't design tiki bars. So I just kind of, to me, the creative impulse is, it's just like you can apply it to anything. So it doesn't seem unnatural for me to decide, it's like, I want to tell about this period of my life, and I want to, sit down and write a book about it. So, it's like if I get inspired to do that, that's what I do. So, and I think, most people, music. Music is a really odd milieu to begin with, because it's not exactly the men's of society. It's like you get a couple literate people in there, like Jim Morrison or David Bowie or Marilyn Manson, and people like, they're geniuses.
Yeah,
yeah. Like, are they really that brilliant, or are they just people who, like, maybe they've read a couple books and they're a little extra creative?
Right. A lot of people, there's way too much of that genius label being tacked on to anyone that has a significant fan base. You hear it over and over again in many different genres. But you are known, what I'm saying with that term, the Renaissance man, is that you're known by some people maybe in one avenue, and they might not have known you from somewhere else. And then there's others who come from another angle, and then there's some who know about it all. So there's a lot of different ways to find out about you, is what I'm trying to say there. And that's why that term might have been used for that. Let me take one call before we move on. Hello, you're on the radio. Is this Ruthie Bird from Brooklyn, New York?
Yeah. Hi there.
Are you enjoying the conversation, Ruthie Bird?
Yes, fascinating. I was a little appalled by the story about the parrot. I'm sure that must have been rather traumatic for you as a child. Hello?
Well, it was traumatic for me in that I knew these people involved, and it's like I couldn't even imagine these people descending to that and doing that.
Really?
To me, it wasn't funny. I guess everybody in the motorcycle club thought it was really hilarious. But,
yeah.
I'm an animal lover, so it's like some of the other stuff they did was way worse. But it's like they did it to human beings who kind of like signed up for it. So it's like they knew what they were letting themselves in for.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, they were rough times. Well, you've certainly had an interesting life, haven't you?
I what?
You've had an interesting life.
Yeah.
We're just the tip of the iceberg right here tonight. Just the tip. But
yeah.
He's got a lot of things out about him which have come out over the last few years. Like I think a documentary was even made that was premiered, last year or the year before that, Boyd? When was this documentary finally completed?
It was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think, in Hollywood. That this theater supposedly owned by Quentin Tarantino. And it's since played all over the world. It's played, won Best Documentary at Melbourne Underground Film Festival. It's played all over the place. And it actually played, believe it or not, for a solid week at some theater in Portland, Oregon, for some reason. I can't imagine them running this thing for a solid week. But it's supposed to be released on DVD later this year by my record company. But I haven't heard any updates on it lately, So
far it's just been shown on film in theaters, strictly.
Well, it was initially released as a sort of through over the internet bootleg sort of thing, but the record company wanted to see a professional release, so they kind of said, stop doing this, and we're going to release, do a proper professional release.
Is it really 4 hours long?
Yeah,
it's 4 hours long, Boyd. So someone who've never heard of you, if they sit through 4 hours about someone, they might learn a thing or two about what makes you tick and about who you tick and who you tick off and who. I mean, you might learn a lot about Boyd Rice from seeing this documentary if it's 4 hours long. Is what I'm thinking. I have not seen it yet.
Oh well, it's actually. Most people who saw it actually wished it was a couple more hours long, because you hear 4 hours and you think, oh my God, this is going to be pure torture.
It's like a mini-series almost.
When they show it on the big screen, they have it broken into 3 sections, and then there's a break where you can go out, an intermission where you can go out and smoke cigarettes or whatever. So, but the main complaint has been that it's too short. Rodney Bingenheimer, if you know him, the DJ in L.A. discovered.
Is that the guy from The Rock?
Rodney and The Rock.
Okay.
He said that he wished it was 2 hours longer. That he just loved it, and
he's not in the documentary though, right?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, he is. That's why he wished it was a few hours longer. But he just is in a scene where I'm DJing at some club in Hollywood, and he comes up to the DJ booth, and we're talking back and forth, and he's in it too. There's a bit about his club because when I was a teenager, he had a glam rock club on the Sunset Boulevard called Rodney's English Disco, and that was like the most decadent Fellini-esque place a teenager could ever want to go. It was just absolutely amazing. And Rodney was playing all the latest glam rock stuff from England that nobody in the United States had heard yet, because it wasn't released here. Oh, wow. Ruthie Bird, do you have another question?
No, I don't at the moment.
Feel free to call back in a little while, Ruth Bird. We're going to get some other calls on here.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thanks for calling.
All right.
The other thing about this documentary is that well, what do you think of it? Do you think it thoroughly captured what you thought it would be, or what was the director's goal with this? I mean, does it end up in a certain place in your life and then it stops, or does it cover all the way up to, how does it go? Is it what you expected?
Well, it's divided into 3 sections, and one section is Lemon Grove, and that's like me growing up and stuff. And then the second part is San Francisco, and it's what happened to me and what went on in my life when I lived there. And the third part is Denver. So it goes up through the point in Denver where I had this tiki bar called Tiki Boyd's, and it has footage from there and me being interviewed while the bar was still open. And but mostly this guy, strangely enough, this guy wanted to present me as this nice, fun, funny person. So anybody who sees this documentary, and that's how I come across in the documentary, that's how he wanted to present me, and that's how I come across. People see this and think, wow, Boyd is the funniest person on earth. What a fun guy. I wish I was friends with this guy. And which is nice, but it's like it leaves out a bit of the dark side, and it doesn't really focus on my career much. I mean, I think somebody could watch this movie and not really come away with the fact that I was this musician who did all these, really innovative things starting 33 years ago. I mean, it hints at that, but, but I like it. Because there's only one malcontent on the internet who's had anything bad to say about it. And everybody else just says, I love this, I wish it was longer,
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing it. And I was just wondering your perspective on it. And because, it's about you, it's as far as I know, the first documentary about you. I know you've been on different TV shows, but never had a whole thing dedicated to just about all Boyd Rice, but every direct.
Actually, I could make an announcement right now. There is this filmmaker named Joel Hartling is showing the Boyd Rice documentary Part 1 and Part 2 this Thursday in Denver on Santa Fe between 13th and 14th, and it's at a place called Unit E. So he's going to show these films that are made in, I think one was made sort of in 1890, and the other was made several years after that. But these like very weird abstract films, but they are documentaries of me that have been shown all over the world. So.
Oh, wow.
But they're arty. They're abstract. They're very abstract because he followed me around for years and just took single frames of me doing 1,000,001 things. And when you see it, it's like you're seeing 3 years of my life zoom by in 10 minutes or something.
That would be a nice addition just to see. Maybe that could be put out someday on a DVD.
Yeah, it's supposed to be put out by Soleil Moon, but I won't even go into why it's been postponed. But eventually, these films will be, made available to the public.
One thing at a
both
time.
Good.
One thing at a time. We'll wait for the 4-hour one to come out. And is it called Iconoclast? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Iconoclast.
And it was a big premiere in Hollywood, I guess, a few years back, you said, with a lot of probably notables in the audience that showed up.
Yeah, there are people I hadn't seen for 30 years. There were a lot of people from the LA punk scene or all the other stuff. There was an experimental music scene going on there at the same time. So there are a bunch of people from that. There are people who showed up who I worked with at Taco Bell when I was 16 years old in Lemon Grove, California.
There's people that when you were 16 and that's pretty crazy that they would recognize you from back then as this young teenager working at a fast food place and then showing up at your documentary premiere, and that's the next time you see him. That's kind of crazy.
Well, I think the thing is, Larry tracked down these people and interviewed them for the documentary. So he's got interviews with people that used to work with me at Taco Bell and went to high school with me and stuff. So when it was time for the premiere, he called up every single person who was involved in this film and told them it was happening.
Oh, I wish he would have gone. I mean, that's going far, but I wish he would have gone a step further and tracked down some of those bikers to tell us the story of the little Boyd Rice and how they helped shape the person he's become all these years later. I think that would have been a real honor to have some of those bikers at the premiere, and at least pretty funny too.
That would have been great.
If they're still alive.
If any, they're still. Yeah, exactly.
Boyd, we got a lot of calls here. I'm going to take, before I go into the calls, I think we should play a track from a non-record just to give people some idea that you do make some kind of notes happen on CDs and vinyl for years and years. Let's see. The station itself owns the Greatest Hits of Non, the Easy Listening for Iron Youth record, and the Receive the Flame Live on Sick tour, which I think is kind of rare at this point, isn't it? That Live on Sick tour.
Those people asked me if they could do an ultra limited edition cassette of this horrible tour I did, and they kept putting it out and putting it out. Whenever they'd sell out, they'd put out more, and then when CD format came out, they put out CDs. And somebody said, "Hey, you're cheating Boyd out of all this stuff," and they said, "We don't care. Boyd Rice is an evil guy. He deserves anything he gets."
So basically,
I wish I could twist my nose like a genie on TV and just make all those Sick Tour cassettes and CDs disappear. But there is something later on you can play. I'm pretty sure there's something on the Best of Non that is one of the songs I did with Coil.
What's it called?
Possible?
Which song is it called, Boyd?
I don't remember.
It's on Iron Youth album, The Greatest Hits?
Could be.
There's
some instrumental I did with Coil under a band name was Sickness of Snakes. Anyway,
you know what? That might be on The Way I Feel, or it might be on.
It could be. Yes. The Way I Feel. If
I got that right here. The station owns it. We've been serviced well with Boyd Rice non-material here over the years. Let me see.
Wow.
Sickness and Snakes. It's called Many Hands with Coil, right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, because I'm going to, Sleazy just died, so it's like those things are going to be re-released later in the year. All the stuff I did with Jeff and Sleazy, or John and Sleazy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, a lot of the pioneers are leaving us, Boyd. And we're going to have. So this was a compilation, The Way I Feel, which was a lot of previously released stuff. Was there anything exclusive on this? On The Way I Feel?
It almost seems like there was, but I think, isn't it mostly like I do sort of duets with people?
Yeah.
Duets,
I mean, it's got
collaborations.
It's got stuff like credited to Boyd Rice Experience, like Alone with the Calm, which is kind of short. Then it has the People with Douglas P. That's a favorite. I like the People song, but I think that was put out on something else. Love Will Change the World. Was that exclusive to this or not? I'm not sure.
No, that was on, I think, Hatesville.
Okay, I don't have all of your releases. I have enough, and the station has a lot, but I still don't have the full discography. But let's get on with this track from the Way I Feel compilation with Coil, Many Hands. Do you want to talk about this song or this track before we go into it real quick?
I will say that it is one of the first things anybody in the industrial milieu did with using a Fairlight synthesizer, which was one of the first samplers. And at the time we recorded this, there was only there were two Fairlights in England, in the entirety of England. And one was owned by Daniel Miller, who's the, leader of Mute Records, and the other was just sort of rented out to people. And the person this was rented out to before us was Kate Bush, and the Fairlight still had a bunch of her samples on them. So on some of these songs, we're actually using these samples by Kate Bush that must have taken hours and hours and hours to get.
Yeah, that's an interesting aside there. Boyd, you're full of interest in asides and different stories, which could become full length conversations if we wanted them to be. So basically,
well, cut that right there.
We'll cut it right there, and we'll be back. We have full lines. We'll get to these calls. Please hold on. So far, I've gotten 2 questions out of the interview that I've tried to write. So that means we're going to have to ask Boyd in a future month to maybe come back on to the Old Time Family Time Dry Course show to finish up what we tried to start here, but what we'll never finish because it can never be finished. Here we go with Boyd from The Way I Feel and the song With Coil. 687-3515. I don't know why I'm giving out the number because all lines are full. Just wait a second. Now that concludes that song from the Sickness of Snakes project. Boyd, does it sound like you remembered it sounding? Has it aged well?
Yes, and those the bombs, the sounds of breaking glass, and all that. Those are the ones Kate Bush had left behind.
Those are her special sounds that she gave without knowing that she gave a gift to another recording session.
And it's funny because those guys both were like huge fans of Kate Bush. I always really hated her. I always remember that little music video where she's a tiny ballerina dancing around in front of her while she's playing the piano, and I just always wanted to take a boot and crush that little ballerina.
Boy, give her another chance, will you? One more chance. Give her another.
She gave us the bombs and the breaking glass.
Yeah.
So
Maybe listen to some of her album tracks and not the hit singles. go a little deeper, Boyd. We have a surprise guest call here, and they want to speak.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I wonder who this could be. Hi, you're on the radio station. You're on Drycore. How can we help you? A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Caller, don't let this surprise go bad, please. I think. Wait, we need to pause. Here we go. Everyone, quiet.
Boyd Rice will share a song with you. Boyd Rice will share with you a song. Boyd Rice will move dark thoughts along. Boyd Rice will cite from memory some words that may be new to me. Boyd Rice can be a friend to quote, whose name is like a gun to tote. A man of wisdom, love, and faith, a spokesman for the human race. Yes, Boyd is found in all these things, a soul who travels, speaks, and sings. So hear him now on Cleveland's Drycore Show. Yes, Boyd is found in this and more, a wizard from behind the door, of truth and light through dread of the night. So hear him now on Cleveland's Drycore Show. Radio show, radio show, radio show, radio show, radio show.
Yeah! Wow. That is an exclusive. That is in a radio first exclusive by Ralph Jean. We want to thank Ralph very much for making an exclusive song all about Boyd Rice and his influence on humanity. And Boyd, listening to that song and watching that documentary about you, I don't think there's a dark part in your heart left. It's all light now. It's all light, beaming out, blinding people. Your influence on humanity for the better, saving people in that Samwo Chinese restaurant years ago, was just the beginning. I think you have a career ahead of you as a world hero, Boyd.
Hey, well, nobody's reprinted this, but I found a lost little girl at Disneyland. Just at the time the park was closing, I was like by some toilets where my friends went in. This woman came out and said, "Did you see a little girl dressed in pink?" And I said, "No." And she said, you must have seen her. She had to come right by you. Where is she? What have you done to her? And I'm thinking, oh, no. And this woman started freaking out. And after enough amount of time of her freaking out, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out into this dark Disneyland park, and I'm going to find this lost little girl, and I'm going to reunite her with her mother. And I did exactly that. I wandered around until I saw this, confused-looking little girl dressed in pink, and, I said, "Have you lost your mother?" And she said, "Yes." And by the time I got back, there was a bunch of cops with the mother. And they said, "How did you find this girl?" So it was even though I was a good guy who found the lost little girl, they thought I'd had her hidden away someplace, and that's where I knew how I knew where to get her.
That's what the documentary should focus on, or a future documentary, about how you're always in these situations, and there's always an authority figure questioning you when you always had the purest of ideals and motives behind it. And it's ridiculous. I mean, from world serpent to world hero. That's all I have to say. Ralph, do you have something to say to Boyd?
Yeah, I'd sure like to. How you doing, Boyd?
I'm doing great, Ralph. Thanks for the song. I couldn't totally hear it. It was sort of soft and in the background, but it sounds great. And
well, I'm glad to be able to do it, and I hope I'll be able to sing it when you can hear it a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
He wrote that song, Boyd, in less than 24 hours. We worked that out, so it was a pretty good job, I think.
That's great.
Hey,
tribute to me by the Star Trek and Rock and Roll Cowboy.
Hey, guys.
Yes.
We got some time? I'll play it for you one more time.
Why not?
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
Let's hear it. He's putting the phone down. That's what's the little pause there.
Boyd Rice will share with you a song. Boyd Rice will move dark thoughts along. Boyd Rice will cite from memory some words that may be new to me. Boyd Rice can be a friend to quote, whose name is like a gun to tote. A man of wisdom, love, and faith, a spokesman for the human race. Yes, Boyd is found in all these things, a soul who travels, speaks, and sings. So hear him now on Cleveland's Dry Core Show. Yes, Boyd is found in this and more, a wizard from behind the door, a truth and light through dread of the night. So hear him now on Cleveland's Dry Core Show. Radio show, radio show, radio show, radio show.
Yeah, double dose.
Yeah,
brand new.
Yeah, and I could hear that version. I could hear that version much better. I could understand the words and everything.
Well, I thought I'd just give it another try, and I'm glad that you were able to make it out better.
You brightened everyone's early morning, Ralph, with that exclusive track.
Well, it's my
right there.
pleasure, especially for my friend Boyd.
It is an honor to have a song written about you. You know,
it totally is. It totally is. I can't even believe it because as you know, Ralph's one of my favorite singer-songwriters. So to have him write a song about me is just like it's great.
And the gift of music, everyone can enjoy it as well as you, Boyd.
It was fun to do it.
Now I know what song. Ralph, there's always a certain point in his concert where he says, "Do we have any requests?" And it's like, now I know what I'm going to be requesting next time.
Yeah, La Bamba.
La Bamba, yeah.
You did La Bamba on this show in January.
That was last time I played. I did La Bamba.
Yeah, I didn't know you could pull it off, but you really did. You got the pronunciation down pretty good, also.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. I don't really know Spanish. I mean, I can't speak it, but I enjoy singing it.
Well, Ralph, thank you for making a dynamic appearance on the Boyd interview.
Sir.
Returning the favor because Boyd hung out when we had you on here. He made a little cameo, and you're just returning the favor in a big way.
Thanks a ton, Ralph. Thanks a ton.
Okay.
Thanks, Ralph.
Bye-bye.
We'll have you on in a few months. We'll schedule for a few months to do a follow-up on this show.
That'll be great. I'll be looking forward to that.
All right, Ralph. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Wow, I don't know, Boyd. That is quite an honor right there, and a nice gift.
Yeah. I didn't. When you said a surprise, I was thinking, oh no, what's this going to be? Because there are any number of people I know who might call up to surprise me, and it would be a very unpleasant surprise. So.
Oh, I was thinking, Boyd. I was thinking about doing some funny surprises, but I wanted to play the nice route today, and I think it's Hi, you're on the radio station. Boyd Rice, this is your life. You're on the radio. Caller, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, Plow Guy, I totally love that jam, guitar and all.
That's great.
It's awesome, man. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You guys are pretty cool.
Well, that's all you need to know. We appreciate it.
I'm not going to talk about myself. I just want to talk about you guys. Which show is this? Strappy, Slappy, Kippy, Gabby?
Whatever one you want it to be, that's the one it is.
Mohammed, no more of that Arabic stuff. Well, shit, man. I don't know. You guys must be old. Like, you've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yo, I turned 55 December 16th. So yeah, I've been doing this for 33 years.
You getting paid, lad?
Oh God, yeah.
When's
It's the best job on earth.
Is the last job that you had to check in for that security guard job, Boyd? Where the rat incident happened?
It was the book I wrote. The job I wrote Twilight Man about. I was it's security, sure, but it's the job title was called Alarm Agent, and you just drive around in a cop car and wear a gun, and if an alarm went off, they would radio you and say, "An alarm's gone off at such and such an address."
477, like rescue me. Damn it. I like to check the perimeter myself. I have a lot of landscaping equipment in behind some garages, and my buddy owns a gas station. So in the middle of the night, like now, I like to drive around and drink a bud, turn on the radio, and check the perimeter, damn it. I think there needs to be more checking the perimeter. Don't you think, lads?
Boyd, what was this guy saying?
Grux? Is this Grux?
This is a plow guy. He's a Cleveland guy who makes big sculptures out of stuffed animals. So I don't think you don't know who this guy is, but you could.
Yeah, no. But I love music, dude. Spark and Spider, Grog Shop, Agora. I mean, I'm 33, so I've heard a lot, but I'm still young. I've only gone to Rush, Talking Heads, Beck, Wu-Tang Clan. Those are the only concerts I've ever been to besides like Nighttown, Agora, Spark and Spider, Grog Shop. I love music, man. Shit, man. Well, music rocked. In fact, Cleveland has, I wish I had a union. Not a union, but I wish I could get all the piano players, all the saxophone players, everyone who just kind of sublets every weekend to get in a big band and be like, boom, let's do this shit. Let's rock it out.
Boyd, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, you've had a forum now. Just, you could even give your phone number, your email address, and just say, okay, I want all the piano players and all the harmonica players. Everybody give me a call. We're forming the world's largest band.
That sounds like an idea. Now we have another call calling in from sweet Georgia on my mind, I think. That is. Caller from Georgia, you're on the radio.
Yeah. Hi. This is Badge Bohr from the Wharves. And, Boyd, I wondered if I wanted to tell you that I have had sex with 3,183 men. But your Totenkopf record with 4 greasy dudes on the cover is a German LP. Did you ever find a copy of that?
You have a question?
No.
You never found that? Do you remember what I was talking about? That LP?
No. There's a German bootleg LP that has 4 men on the cover?
No. It's called Totenkopf. You told me about it. It's like a 70s German record where they have a song that goes beer, girls, I forgot what it was.
It was like
also
Harley, girls, beers. Yeah, Harley, beer, girls. Yeah. No, I never found
that. You never found it. Oh, yeah, it's not on Discogs. I haven't seen it anywhere. But I've been looking for it.
It was played to me as being the missing link between heavy metal and industrial music. And,
right, exactly.
And it really is. And
there's
it's out
maybe
of
5 copies left on the earth because I've been looking for years for that. Also, in Iconoclast, there was like a whole section that was supposed to be with Johanna Wendt. Did you ever see any of that footage, the interviews or the footage that Wessel had for that?
Maybe I did, and maybe she does end up in the film, right? But she just says like 2 sentences or something.
Oh, well, they cut it out when I saw it.
Yeah. He spent like a year editing that thing, and it's the first copy he showed me was great, and it had all these amazing people in it, and they were saying funny things. And then the next time I saw it, it's like a lot of those people weren't in it. And then when the premiere happened, a whole lot of people weren't in it. So I don't know what went on with that, but I just
God damn it! I hope it's in the bonus material because Johanna Wendt is probably one of the coolest things that ever happened on the planet. And it's just sad that she's not in there.
Yeah, well,
you put out her
first.
You put out her first release.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
and it was like a little
very
classic,
important to put that in the film.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, he went over there and he interviewed her, and she said all this great stuff, and then, he edited it down to, 10 seconds, and then I guess he edited out the 10 seconds. Where did you
Mother sucker. Okay. Also, didn't you live with V. Vale from Research for a while?
No, I used to stay there when I was in San Francisco, and stay there really for extended periods of time until I got my own apartment. But there was a whole period in the 80s where I was just like moving around between Phoenix and LA and San Francisco. I spent a lot of time with the Research people, or Search and Destroy when I first met Vale.
They're now like in their 20th printings of or more of pranks and incredibly strange films. I was wondering when the last time you got a check from that guy. He's just completely X'd you out of his life so he could keep your goodies, or what?
Yeah, because I took off everything I was doing. I spent 2 years of my life working on that book and traveling around interviewing people and stuff. And I think I got checks for the first 2 printings. And for me, like back then, to get a check for $1,000 was huge. I think, wow, I'm rich. I have $1,000. And a number of years ago, I came across the letter he gave me when he gave me that check, and the letter said that my percentage represented 1% of their profits, which means like me and Jim got $1,000. Me and Jim Morton, who co-edited the thing with me, got $1,000 off of that,
and a lot of
printing.
San Francisco property too.
If it's in its 20th printing, and they printed as many copies each printing, that means they made over $1 million off that, and stopped paying me my miserable 1% when they decided that I wasn't a nice guy. That I was a liability to them.
I think you're taking on this little crown of thorns and cross that you kind of earned being the perfect little saint now, helping this guy raise his kid and have a comfortable lifestyle while you live in a black basement. I guess it's your fate, just being too nice. And Anton LaVey was the same way. He was just a little too nice, I think, as far as Aquino goes, and the Temple is set and all the jerks that kind of gravitated towards him. So you better start being mean. That's what I think.
Hey, Boyd, let's...
Well, I've actually got the ideal lifestyle. I've been living at my girlfriend's apartment, which is, if you could see this place, you'll lose your mind. It's like a cross between Hugh Hefner's bachelor pad and Austin Powers' bachelor pad, with like a giant zebra rug that covers the entire floor. But we're about
Joel Hartling is your girlfriend, is it?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
Not a grotto in there, is it?
Not in. Well, there's the wall I'm looking at is made entirely out of bricks, but it looks like the bricklayer was on LSD, because they go in every single direction and they stick out, and they look like, if you're familiar with the work of Kurt Schwitters, the German Dadaist or Merz guy, it looks like Kurt Schwitters built our fireplace.
That's amazing.
It's really, really good. But we're about ready to move back into into my apartment, which, it's like much bigger.
Forget it.
9 rooms or something. And we just went over there, and they just gave me a brand new black stove and black refrigerator. So the kitchen's looking really groovy, but it's, this place is really sort of Danish modern, and my place is, still like my taste from 23 years ago with the black walls and red ceiling. So we're going to sort of redecorate and move in our kitchen set by Eero Saarinen and all this groovy stuff.
Hey, boy,
well, nab that fireplace too, man. That'd be a really good guest room. Somebody can stay in the fireplace. Sounds amazing.
We're going to photograph this. We're going to photograph every square foot of this fireplace, and if we ever, move in someplace where we have the opportunity to build a fireplace, we're going to replicate this, because this is, my girlfriend took one look at this place and said, that fireplace is insane, I have to live here. So I've had a couple good years in the scrapers.
I have to ask you on behalf of a friend of mine who wants to know what you're listening to lately, and is it just that new French pop compilation that came out that you're pushing, your friend put out?
Well, that's pretty good. It's La Confiserie Magique by it's been put out by my friend Jean-Emmanuel Dubois, who has this great label called Martyrs of Pop. And this is like this weird blend between yay music and psychedelia. It doesn't sound like anything you've ever heard. So that's good. But I also, they came out with this lost Leslie Gore album called Magic Colors. It was entirely recorded and it was never released. And that just came out on CD. And that I like and I listen to a lot. And then
how old was she?
Leslie Gore?
When that was made.
This was made probably it was just when psychedelia started happening, but you still have the psychedelic pop where it's a bunch of people going ba 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 ba, or la la la.
Little Partridge Family there.
A little bit, yeah.
You've started a lot of people to get their going with different little genres or obsessions. Do you think you could push people to go find that Totenkopf record? Because it seems like the Holy Grail. Oh, and speaking of Holy Grail, that's a suggestion. Speaking of Holy Grail, did you ever watch The God Who Wasn't There documentary?
No.
Okay. It's a real good, it dispels Jesus as being a sort of based on Greek myth and a couple other things that were going on back then.
There's a book called, I think it was called something like The 17 Crucified Messiahs, and it's about all these, there was in virtually every culture, there was a person who was syncretist with Christ. Like who's the guy? Attergatus. There was just a ton of these people. Even Odin had the thing where he hung on the tree, and
right, the world tree.
It was like a death and resurrection thing. So it's like this death and resurrection thing. It goes back to ancient Egypt, and I think before that.
Well, it was great talking to you, man. I sure hope you find that Totenkopf thing. I will drive to Denver to go listen to that because I've been intrigued.
Hey, don't go just yet, caller. Caller, don't just. I need to ask you.
Okay.
If there's a documentary about the dwarves, would Boyd Rice be one of the people?
No. I'm in the Wharves.
The Wharves.
I'm in a band called. My name is Badge Boar.
I got you backwards.
And I've had sex with almost 3,000 men.
Well, congratulations! Congratulations!
Thank you very much.
I hope you find that Totenkopf record, whatever that sounds like. Sounds like.
It sounds incredible. I've never heard it.
Well, that's a good recommendation.
I know a lot of it's out of France, so I know a lot of people in France, and I just have this thing. It's like when I was in France, one of the first times I stayed with a guy who was in this art group called Bazooka, and I recorded. He had this great French recording by Frank Alamo of The Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las, but it was called Le Chef de la Bande, and I recorded it on my crappy little tape recorder, and listened to it for years until that tape was eaten up. So I just emailed a friend of mine in France and said, hey, do you know anything about this, French version of the Shangri-La's Leader of the Pack? And he immediately sent me, YouTube videos and everything else. So it's like, I got to hear that for the first time in 3 decades. And it was as good as I remembered it.
All right, this guy has a golden ticket to everything else, hopefully. Yeah, Totenkopf. It must be found. We must find this LP and hang it on the wall.
I appreciate your candor, caller. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you very much. Now I'm in a different personality. Okay, bye.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
Very interesting people you meet along the way, huh, Boyd?
I guess so, yeah.
We have someone that called who's interested to talk to you called the Professor. He's a very interesting person. And I have to take a break because we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to play a public service announcement, an ID, a disclaimer, and then we'll come back with a 1-minute piece from Nan called Eternal Ice. And then we'll talk to the Professor. And we have another call from someone in San Francisco that wants to speak with you after Professor. So we're getting a lot of calls coming in. If I can't get to them all, call back and call in. As soon as you hear someone else drop off, call right back in. That's how it's got to be. So I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes here. 687-3515.
For a list of upcoming movies at the Cleveland Cinematheque, you can check their website at www.cia.edu/CINEMATHEQUE.
Hey, that's Neat Peep, some British New Wave band.
Take off. You don't know.
Yeah, they bootleg gold, eh?
WCSB, Cleveland.
Sounds like a British New Wave band.
Yeah, beauty sound.
Beauty.
Not my style of music, eh?
Hey, Jose, here's another one for your collection, eh?
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride.
Portions of the following broadcast may be found objectionable by members of the listening audience. Therefore, WCSB advises listener discretion.
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
Is your life treating you poorly? Your affiliated Cleveland Clinic hospitals are offering fitness opportunities throughout their network. Some of these opportunities include classes in Tai Chi, ballroom and line dancing, water aerobics, Pilates, low-impact aerobics, and yoga. If you're interested, you can call 216-448-0828 for further information. This message, it's been brought to you by your friends here at WCSB, Cleveland.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. For more information, you can check out www.feedthepig.org.
Silent war, holy war, hail the blade evermore. Time's true current rushes down. Time's true burden crushes down. There is no birth without blood. There is no birth without blood. Silent war, holy war, hail the strong evermore. Death throws down beneath the predator's jaw. Hail our beacon wheel of the law. There is no birth without blood. There is no birth without blood.
Who's singing on that?
That's Rose McDowell.
Is she from that Strawberry Switchblade group?
Yeah, from Strawberry Switchblade. Yeah. That's where she had the big hits. Strawberry Switchblade.
Well,
that was her when I'd been in phone contact with her for a long time and corresponded with her for a long time, and we had a lot of mutual friends. And the first time I met her was in Tokyo, and she did all these. I did a series of live shows there. She drummed with me and sang a song. Got up to some mischief.
Did you write that? You wrote that song and she sang it, and how many takes was that?
One, and she actually got some lyrics wrong. So,
what were the lyrics supposed to say?
I don't know. I mean, it was she just flubbed up one thing, but I mean, we didn't have a lot of time to practice.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would ever notice until you said it.
No, you really can't tell because her voice is so lovely. She could, she could sing a commercial jingle, and you just go, "Wow, what is that?"
Yeah, that really, it's really a standout on the Iron Youth, which is actually just a compilation of a lot of the previous releases, which is the Easy Listening for Iron Youth compilation. Probably a lot of people might have started out with that if they were trying to find a starting place to get into your music or whatever. But
yeah, well, I hope so. I think that was one of the first, it was kind of released in the early days of CDs. And a lot of this stuff had come out, and there was an audience for it, but the distribution was really weird. And so at about that time, I thought, well, I've done enough different stuff that it would be, good to do a best of thing that would be an introductory thing that shows sort of like bits and pieces from my whole career. So that's what that was.
Yeah, one more quick thing before we go to the professor who's waiting on a call is there was you're in the intro to some movie, I forgot what it's called, something about Satan or something, and it shows, you come out and there's like a curtains with the wolf angle on there, and then there's people drumming. It looks very theatric, and like a lot of money went into production of that, and what is that movie called, and how did that come about that you're in there?
That's a documentary by this guy, Anthony Thomas, who's really one of the most respected documentary makers in England. It's like in England, if you mention the name Anthony Thomas, everybody knows who it is, because he did this very famous documentary called Death of a Princess about, some Islamic princess that was stoned to death because she was interested in a Western guy. But
the opposite of Princess Diana, I guess.
Yes.
Well, never mind. We'll just. So he's known for this one documentary, and he decided.
Well, he's done a ton of documentaries, but that one was just massive, and and it's like made everybody sit up and take notice. He got all these awards. But during the time when there was this huge, like, satanic thing where everybody was going to Christian therapist who would uncover these lost memories of how they were part of the satanic cult when they were babies and how they were sexually abused by people and blah, blah, blah. So this was becoming this huge thing, and the psychiatric community at a certain point started saying, wait a minute, these people are all sort of crazy, and none of this really happened. But a lot of people took it very seriously. So he did a whole documentary about that. And I was interviewed for, I was in the British version of it. And then I guess a version has come out in Germany where I'm in it. But for HBO, they felt that it ran a little long. So, they've got like 20 seconds of me talking. They cut that out, but they left in me doing Total War for whatever reason. And I was actually flown to England to do that little music video part.
Is there a full version of that exists? Because it seems like it cuts, and there's the drummers. So you didn't know any of those, the people drumming, they were just already set up, ready to go, and you just came in there, they flew you in, and then you did the piece, and that was it?
Those were just people, they called up the musicians union and said, we need people to play kettle drums, and, they just need to show up, they need to dress in black, and I told them, I said, no facial hair. I don't want anybody in here with a mustache. and they got a guy with a mustache. And they also, I said, you know, people are really touchy. You've got to tell them, you've got to warn them before they come over here, because otherwise you'll start filming and you'll have all these people leaving when they find out what it is. So he said, well, this guy's a member of the Church of Satan, and he thinks this and he thinks that, and blah, blah, blah. And they talked to these people, and, oh, no, that's okay. That's fine. And then they showed up, and it's like one guy especially, he just took a look at the whole set, and he took a look at everybody dressed in black, and he, you know, I think I was, doing something. I think I was 10 seconds into Total War, and this guy just put down his sticks and just left the building.
Oh, wow.
I said, where are you going? And he said, I don't want to be involved in anything slightly like this.
That's not very professional. It's theatrics. I was hoping that you were going to say that you knew those people and that was actually part of a tour or something. That would have been really great if they would tour with you like that. That was an amazing opening right there, sequence.
Well, you see, the thing is, I did the thing in Tokyo, which is available on DVD, and I had 4 people drumming with me, and like drums and banners coming off the drums, and I wanted to keep going in that direction. I thought, the next time I do this, I'm going to have 6 people, and then 8 people, but trying, you know, when you do a concert tour and you're on your own, everything is easy. When you do something and you try to get 4 people or 6 people to do, you know, get in the same mindset. And even if they are in the same mindset as you, it's just every person you add, it becomes a bit more problematic.
And you got to pay for them and pay for their room and board and food and all that. On top of that, if you take them on a travel. Yeah, well, I tried to do something in London, and, you know, most of the people lived in London, and most of the people were friends of mine, and they're, you know, would have done it just for the experience. But it, you know, now,
after a certain point, I just thought, okay, it's Boyd the one-man band again. You know, I don't need drummers. I don't need extra people.
I don't know. That looked pretty impressive, that one scene right there. Why no mustaches? Why were no mustaches allowed with the drummers?
I don't know. When I was young, I had a real thing against facial hair. Just didn't like it at all. It's only within the last 2 years, maybe, that I've grown a beard. 3 years.
Yeah, I don't even know how you look now, so I don't know what your appearance looks like.
Clean shaven. The hair is sort of long on top and short on the sides.
No mohawk?
I've never had a mohawk either.
Maybe you should try a mohawk one time, Boyd. We have the professor calling in here, who's been waiting to talk. I'm going to bring him on here. Professor,
patiently.
Sorry for the wait.
Yes, so let's talk about more of the dark side of Boyd Rice. There have been a few allusions during the course of the interview to Anton LaVey and Michael Aquino, who of course were big leaders in San Francisco of the satanic community. And I'm just wondering, what kind of connections did Boyd Rice have with the two of them? Were you a member of one of their orders, or perhaps both of their orders?
Yeah, well, no, I never met Aquino, never had any affiliation with him. He was gone by the time I showed up. And, you know, I just met Anton LaVey at a film festival, and we talked, and then when the film started showing, he said, you know, it's like, give me your number, and I'll have my gal Friday give you a call, and you can come over to my place some night, and we'll finish this conversation. Because we had a lot in common in terms of films, and we both liked girl groups, and we both liked certain kinds of music. So, and he'd read about me in the research pranks book and all those other things, and he saw the lists of my favorite films that I put up. So he already knew that we would have a lot in common. So
there's this whole revival now, especially among people, it seems, in their late teens or into their 20s, of a sort of what they call left-hand path, a kind of a pursuit of the darkness, the dark side, and Luciferianism and Satanism, which I'm sure in the 70s in San Francisco was probably all over the place. But now it's sort of reaching out beyond sort of the West Coast or certain limited areas in the East Coast, and it's sort of everywhere. Have you had much contact with these left-hand group people? A lot of them into alternative music, sort of the kind of music that you play. And if you've had contact, what are your impressions? And do you sort of agree with this entire left-hand spirituality, satanic, Luciferian approach?
No, I'm actually more into like Hermetic Gnosticism, and
right,
I already was at the time I met LaVey, and I could totally accept 99% of what he was into, and it wasn't in disagreement with anything I was into. So he knew where I was coming from, and he was totally accepting of that. And at the end of the day, if you were really to say what he was into, that's more what he was into. But he sort of had set down, he sort of carved into granite in the mid-'60s what his, worldview was, and he kind of had to stand by that, even though toward the end of his life, he didn't agree with a lot of this crap like, individuality and all the stuff that were the central pillars of the Church of Satan early on.
I read that he was a fan of Ayn Rand. Is that true?
I can imagine that he would have been. He never discussed her.
There's an Ayn Rand, satanic nexus there amongst some people who contend that Anton LaVey got a lot of his ideas from Ayn Rand, and then put this sort of satanic dark gloss upon it to sort of be sensational and to make some money.
I seriously doubt it. But I know the new Church of people are saying this, and they're trying to reduce it to a philosophy of rationalism, which it never was and never can be. It's like, I understand people wanting to be rational and not superstitious, but when you're into a form of mysticism, there has to be that X factor. There has to be something that you don't understand and you can't explain, but it's central to what's going on. And if people say that Anton LaVey never believed in the supernatural or magic, I just say BS.
Have you ever practiced any kind of magical activity or dabbled in it like David Bowie and some of the others? Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones were fascinated with Aleister Crowley. A lot of people in the rock business are fascinated by this, and I would imagine it's even more pronounced in the alternative music group. What about yourself personally? Have you pursued any magical activities or any occult activities?
Well, I think everything I've ever done falls into that category. It may not look like it because it's not somebody drawing a symbol on the floor or lighting candles. But
well, have you done stuff like that, drawing a symbol on the floor and lighting candles?
When I was 13 years old, yeah.
Oh, so you were a very involved early occultist.
Yeah, well, I grew up on this TV show called Dark Shadows, and then because of Dark Shadows, I developed an interest in the occult, and I read every single book in the Lemon Grove Public Library about occultism or black magic or anything like that. And then when LaVey's Satanic Bible came out, I got that, when I was 13. So
are you familiar with the Hyperborean thesis that the Nephilim in the Bible, the Genesis chapter 6, about the sons of the gods breeding with the daughters of men, and then the Nephilim were on the earth, which you've written a couple of articles about, by the way.
I think
a lot of listeners don't know that you've written some fairly extensive, very well-documented articles about the Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6, which, of course, the fundamentalist Christians believe are demons. But there is another school of thought that the Nephilim represent actually the product of a breeding of a divine race that came from Hyperborea that had to leave its homeland in the Arctic due to glaciation and the onset of the Ice Age, and fanned out across the globe and interacted with various populations and interbred with them, creating a sort of hybrid race of human/divine people, and these people had certain exceptional powers and abilities as a result of this, and then gradually they became corrupt. But the Hyperborean thesis holds that this race is still around and is waiting to be resurrected and to direct the affairs of the world again. What do you think of that thesis that Julius Evola and some others put forward?
Well, that was basically sort of not entirely, but that was sort of the upshot of what I was writing about. Was that people,
right.
Most people who write about this say, well, these are people from outer space or blah, blah, blah.
Right, there's a lot of different things. The fundamentalist Christians say that they're demons. Some of the people like David Icke say that they're the Anunnaki, the lizard creatures. There's a whole raft of different theories about this reference in the Bible about the Nephilim. And so what is your take on that?
My take is just that there was, the world has existed for a long time, and there have been civilizations that existed, and they've been destroyed, and a few people, managed to survive. I've written extensively about this and about how, if you read Flavius Josephus, he says the Nephilim existed, and he said that even in his time, and he's a very respected chronicler, he said even in his time, people were digging up skeletons of gigantic human beings. And there are places, there's a place in Lovelock, Nevada, which is the Natural History Museum, and they have this gigantic human skull. I've written a whole article just about gigantic humans in myths and legends and in actual historical things,
Well, one of the translations of Nephilim is giants. Another translation is men of renown. But you do hear, in Genesis chapter 6, after the Nephilim are born, it says there's much wickedness on the world, and then right after that it says that God had destroyed the world with a flood. Well, of course, Zeus had to destroy the world with a flood to destroy the Titans, which sounds sort of very close to giants. And then there's a legend in Peru where their supreme god had to destroy the world with a flood to kill off the giants. So, and then there's Plato's allegory of Atlantis, where the gods, I think Poseidon interbred with human women, and everything was okay in Atlantis until the progeny of that breeding, due to more admixture with human interbreeding, became corrupt, and they ended up destroying themselves, or either had to be destroyed by the gods, one of the two. So there seems to be this legend throughout the entire world, which seems to be pointing towards some real historical fact, because in the past, many legends, many myths were actually allegorized versions of real history. So you're saying that many civilizations have come and gone, but do you have any real understanding or any idea about the Nephilim business as it relates to any kind of real specific historical incident, or do you just don't know?
Well, I mean, you've only got to look at some of the cyclopean structures that have been built in virtually every continent there is, and there's still some. There are some that exist in Greece. There's some that exist in South America. There's a place called Baalbek, which I think has two or three of the largest bricks ever made anywhere, and they're, hundreds of tons apiece. It's like, who could have built these structures except for some sort of gigantic human beings?
But I mean, in terms of the story of the Nephilim, though, do you have any specific idea or subscribe to any specific theory, or have you just explored the different theories in terms of just a personal interest and have just kicked around the idea?
Well, what I've done is I've written an article where I tie together as many of these things as possible, and it's like they exist in ancient Sumerian culture, they existed in Greek culture, they existed in Roman culture, I was in Korea, and, I'm reading a magazine on the plane, and it shows this place that is built out of gigantic stones, and there's a hole in the ground next to it, And the story is that the earliest gods came up from a hole in the earth, built this gigantic temple that existed for thousands and thousands of years, and it's the oldest thing known to be in Korea, and it didn't look like anything like the Koreans were building. So,
what do you think of Evola's notion of this divine or semi-divine race that once lived in a northern circumpolar region and, due to one reason or another, had to move south and confronted these various populations, and what he calls miscegenation then occurred? What do you think of that? Because I know you've read Evola. It was very controversial, by the way, and I'm sure that many people listening to this who have not read him, if they would read him, would be quite shocked and appalled. But so I may be putting you on the spot here. But what do you think of his thesis?
I didn't read anything Evola wrote about the Nephilim.
Okay. Well, I think the last time we spoke, you mentioned you'd read the book on history of sexuality.
The metaphysics of sex. I read one on alchemy. I read one on
not Revolt Against the Modern World, I guess. Have you read? I don't think you've read Revolt.
No,
Against the Modern
I've got
World.
that on my shelf. I've never read it. It's like
that's where
I would have given.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I would have given anything to have read it in 1987. But by the time it was released, and I have his Crusade Against the Grail in German.
Right. Well, that's where he discusses the whole Hyperborean Nephilim business in detail. Is in Revolt Against the Modern World, which is really quite a stunning book. And as I say, that book is sort of very incendiary, because I think a lot of people would be highly upset at what he says in that book in many different areas. So if you have that on your shelf, I would recommend picking it up as soon as chance you get, because that's really that's the most incendiary Evola you're going to ever read, and it's very. I'm at a loss for words to describe it, because it's really just an out-and-out assault on every single modern idea and notion that you can possibly imagine, from damning equality, damning democracy, damning racial equality and sexual equality, right across the board. I mean, it's a full-throated attack on the entire modern world, which I found very bracing reading, by the way.
Have you, not that it ties into all of those things, that you haven't by any chance read my book, No, have you?
No, I have not. It's N-O, no?
No, yeah, because every single chapter is a modern day conceit, or it's one of these things that makes everybody smile and feel good, and everybody can agree on it. And it's stuff that you talked about, like there's a chapter on democracy, there's a chapter on equality, there's a chapter on individuality, and it's just like I take a chapter and I just say, no, this is BS, and here's why.
Right. I mean, take the notion of equality. I mean, I think it should be obvious to anybody that people are not equal. I mean, we all can see this in our daily life, but everyone sort of gives lip service to the notion of equality. We all are equal, because that's sort of the reigning ideology of the time. But if you just give it about 3 or 4 seconds worth of thought, you will see that it's preposterous.
One of Anton LaVey's favorite quotes was from, I think it was Animal Farm, where the quote is, we're all equal, but some of us are more equal than others.
So now you're going to Moscow. Are you familiar with Alexander Dugin and his whole group out there?
No.
Oh, well, Dugin, when you're in Moscow, try to make some contact with Alexander Dugin, who is very well connected with the Russian government and is a tremendous fan of Evola. And he has a weekly television program. He's got a newspaper column. He's written, I don't know, a dozen different books, and he lectures at the Russian National Defense Academy. And he's been animated by a lot of Evolian ideas. And there's a whole raft of Evolians in Moscow now. And so you might want to try to check them out if you have time in your trip to Moscow. And many of them are a fan of alternative music as well. And I think Dugan used to have his own rock band as well. And he sort of got his start in the 70s amongst alternative groups in Moscow who were involved in all sorts of things, alternative rock music, esoteric texts, drugs, tantric sex, and that sort of thing. And now he's very well connected with the Russian government, and many claim is running Russian foreign policy with many of his ideas. And, he lectures at the Russian National Defense Academy, for example. So you might want to, look them up. Alexander Dugin, and he's got a whole movement called Eurasianism, or Pan-Eurasianism is his movement, where he envisions a Eurasian empire based upon traditional ideas of empire contained in many of Evola's writings. So that would be something that, might make your Moscow visit a little bit more eventful than you were planning on.
Well, his planners, the people who are putting on the concert, would have to have a lot of connections to make that happen. And I don't know.
Well, if he's got some time off, maybe he can make a few calls on his own. So what do you think about, are you intrigued at all by that, Boyd? This whole movement of Eurasianism in Russia?
I don't know. I'm really sort of apolitical, and people who have high-minded ideals, I usually, you
have a big fan base. You have a big fan base on the far right,
Well, yeah, I've heard that.
It's huge. It's huge.
I've met some of them.
Well, I won't ask you about them because I sense you don't really want to talk about them. But why is people think that? Why is it that you think that the far right has such a fascination with you?
I think it's because I'm someone who's in the public in the public arena, and I really just sort of say whatever comes into my head, and I think that's refreshing because I think people on the right are a little more real politics. They're a little bit more, they've sort of got their feet on the ground, whereas a lot of people on the left, a lot of liberals, they come up with things that sound good, and they can do it, and it doesn't work, and they'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it because they like the idea. They like the idea that everybody has this innate potential, and we're all unique individuals, and we're all equal. And it's that hasn't worked out too well in the past, in the decades since I was a child. So I think people on the right tend to be a little bit more pragmatic. When they see somebody, and it's like the stuff I was saying in San Francisco that got people to hate me was, to me, really just common sense. And it's like you can turn on talk radio today, and people are saying stuff that is worse than what I was saying 20, 25 years ago, and they're getting great ratings for it because people are just ready to hear somebody say something that most people don't want to believe in,
So are you still enamored of Hermeticism, named after the ancient Greek god Hermes or Mercury? The notion.
I still am. We were just printing up and cropping some of my photographs today for this art book I'm working on, and one of them is a huge statue of Hermes that was at a place, Masonic Initiatory Castle I played at in Portugal, called the Quinta di Regaliera.
Mm-hmm. And that's
I still am. I think I will always be. But the thing is, 20 years ago, I had to think about this stuff, and I had to keep it in the front of my mind. And now it's just I've absorbed all this stuff to such an extent that I don't really, So it's I could go the rest of my life without ever mentioning the name Hermes.
Well, per Evola's book, the Hermetic tradition, do you subscribe to the notion that the Hermetic practice will eventually lead to a superhuman state through various different practices that he details in the book?
You know, I really, I know so many people that are into this type of thought, or into Crowley, or into LaVey, and they always think, you know, it's like you can create the new man. And
right.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the Nietzschean Superman. I haven't.
Well,
Evola
would say that Nietzsche had gotten it wrong, because he maintained that the Superman was just another human being who had achieved a certain state. But the Evola's criticisms of Nietzsche were that Nietzsche lacked the metaphysical, hermetic, esoteric component, whereby a human being can be transformed into a god through various hermetic techniques, which are essentially yoga, really, as he points out in the book. And we see these yogis who can achieve certain astounding feats as they work their way towards reintegration and completion to the superhuman state. So to that extent, you're a Hermeticist, but you seem to be skeptical of the end goals of Hermeticism.
Well, that's maybe what Julius Evola posits as the end goals of Hermeticism. I'm always suspicious. I've met a great number of people, and I'm sure they haven't gone through the process or whatever, but a great many people who say, I'm my own God. And my gut reaction is like, geez, I'd hate to be a part of your religion. You know?
Well, I mean,
that's like a piss-poor God, you know.
As detailed in the Hermetic tradition, all of these different practices are sort of very complex and arduous, and it's very difficult to achieve this state, and one pretty much has to devote oneself, you know, kind of full time to it. So, you know, you can't like hold down an 8-hour-a-day job and really, you know, complete the Hermetic practice. But I think that, you know, it's probably, if you look at these yogis and some of the things that they can do, like Harvard Medical School had these yogis who could dry sheets in a 45-degree room, soaking wet sheets, practicing this Tibetan practice of tumo, that sort of thing. They can achieve, certain yogis at the University of Wisconsin can achieve brain activation that they've never seen before. So obviously some of these techniques do work, and that's sort of the goal of Hermeticism. But, you know, obviously, if someone is practicing these things, they're not going to, you know, approach you at a concert and tell you about it. The people who are going to approach you at a concert and tell you about this stuff are just deluded egotists, generally, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know how best to explain this, but I'm a guy who, you know, it's like I'm immersed in popular culture. I stay up all night long so I can see a Highway Patrol with Broderick Crawford and Mr. Ed, and you know, I'm sort of living with one foot in the real world of popular culture and another foot in the world of sort of my own making. And I think for me, Hermeticism is just carrying that knowledge with you of like the transcendence of good and evil, not even having those ideas. I mean, those ideas cause what I have termed the dichotomous mind. And I think most people in the world are trapped in the dichotomous mind, and there are very few people who aren't trapped in it, who don't see things in terms of good and bad and, you know, good and evil. And for me, transcendence is just like not having to have that plague my brain. To me, that's like a pox on the brain. It's like a cancer in the brain, and it affects the way you think, it affects the way you perceive things, and so it affects your experience of reality. And if that thought is not in your brain, it's like that's, you know, that's my form of transcendence.
How
I can carry
would you
that form of... Yeah?
in a nutshell, how would you describe yourself? What animates you? What is your worldview? I mean, why have you done the things that you've done? Is there an underlying theme behind the things that you do? What is your sort of basic thrust of philosophy, if you have one?
I don't. That's the thing. I don't believe I have a philosophy. I don't believe in philosophies. Again, you should read, because philosophy is a chapter in No, which should be reprinted, later this year, the first edition.
Inappropriate.
Be out again. And if you...
So are you a nihilist? Are you a nihilist, then?
No, I probably was more overtly so when I was younger. I was just into a complete rejection of everything, a complete rejection of all values. But it's like I don't have to reject any values anymore because they aren't things that influence me or affect me.
So it could be that you're the eternal enigma, you are the eternal enigma that nobody will be able to figure Boyd Rice out.
No, you can figure me. It's like my book of philosophy. Everybody says this is a book of philosophy, and I said, no, this is a book of everything that I don't believe in. So, and it's
we know what you don't believe in, but we know what you don't believe in, according to this book. But what do you believe in?
I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, if you have to believe in something, it must not be true, right? Because belief requires faith. No.
Well, perhaps you're just an explorer of ideas, not really committing yourself to any of them.
No, perhaps I'm, just like I get hungry and I eat, I get angry, I fight, I get horny, I do you know what? I mean, that's I don't think life's realities take care of themselves. I don't think you need to believe in the things that are really real. People believe in, putting bumper stickers on their car. It's like you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. They obviously believe that by putting a bumper sticker on their car, they're part of the solution. And it's like, that's not true. I can tell you that's not true.
Well, I think that, I'm really, I don't really know exactly where you're coming from. And I don't think anyone listening to this can determine that either. And perhaps that is what you wish, the impression you wish to leave. I suspect that it is, which is fine.
No, I think, it's like, there's a lot of material out there. And, I leave it to people to connect the dots. And, if they're clever enough, they'll do it correctly. A lot of people.
Okay, well, I will try to find your book, No, if I can, and pick it up and read it. And maybe the next time we talk, we will discuss that if I can find the book somewhere. But anyway, I'll sign off now and let somebody else have a chance.
Thanks for calling in, Professor.
Sure.
I know you want.
Yeah, you take care.
Yeah, he's been waiting for a while, so I wanted to get him on. And I know there's other callers. And I know there's a lot of other callers here, so I'm going to go right to them. And then we're going to talk about, I think, the book Standing in Two Circles. I want to know about that book. But let me take a few calls first. You're on the radio station. Sorry for the wait. Hello? Caller? The San Francisco call could not tolerate the Professor Boyd. So you're on the radio station. Caller, you're on the air. Okay, a lot of calls cannot, when they hear someone going on for a little bit longer than a few minutes, they hang up. So I'm going to give out the number if they would like to call back. It's 216-687-3515. So there's been as I said, there's been a lot of stuff you've been putting out. It's been very active in the Boyd Rice world over the last few years. So which sort of came out? What is still available? There's the Standing in Two Circles. What does that focus on? Is that a collection of writings over the years, or is that something else, Boyd?
Yeah, that's a collection of about 20 years of my writings, and then song lyrics and various bits and pieces. And the initial one the initial printing has it's kind of very concentrated biography, sort of Boyd Rice 101, written by the editor, Brian M. Clark. So, but that should be back in print without the introductory things later on this year. But I wanted to sort of time it so it would be coming out sort of at the same time as my new album and my tour and all that stuff. So the things would cross-promote one another. And then No might be coming out later this year as well with, I wrote 13 additional chapters, so.
That's a big bonus. So why did you take the intro out of the one? What? You said the intro will be deleted from the repress?
I think mostly because the guy who edited it, Brian Clark, is studying now to be a lawyer. and I think he just wanted to get his name as far away from anything that could raise questions as possible. I think,
Yeah.
He doesn't want anybody at his law college to Google him and say, "Oh, what's this book? Oh my God!"
That's understandable. We don't need to say any more about that.
Yeah.
What work did you see? You were talking about Anton with a few other people. What work did you see him do personally? What was the work when you were around him that you saw him doing?
In terms of magical things?
Just anything. Anything that you would consider work that would further his thought or whatever.
His biography, Secret Life of a Satanist, the entire thing was dictated while I was visiting. Because I would visit him once or twice a week, and I would go at about 8 o'clock in the evening, and I would stay all night and leave at 6 in the morning or whenever the sun was raising. And he would tell me stories all night long, and his secretary, Blanche, took them all down in shorthand on these yellow legal pads. And when the book came out, I recognized it like, oh, wow. I remember when he told me that story. It's good because he told me so many good stories and I could never remember them in a million years. So it's good to have that book because that represents, a chunk of time I spent with the guy.
When you were around him, did he do any public appearances at all, or was he just kind of reclusive inside?
He was very reclusive by that time, and he was asked to. He was asked to be on the. They offered him 6 figures to go on the Geraldo Satanism special, and he said, I wouldn't go on that for any amount of money." And these people from Geraldo called me up and they said, "Boyd, you're really close to Anton, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We could make it worth your while. If you could talk Anton LaVey into coming on the Satanism special, we'll give you $60,000.
That's good money for 88, right? 1988, that was?
Yeah, that's amazing money. But I just, I said, he's never going to do this in a million years. I wouldn't even ask him. I wouldn't, forget about it.
Who did they wind up getting for that special?
Michael Aquino went on. I think his daughter went on, maybe.
So Temple of Set, was that around at the time? Was that already established?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not good with the history of all that, but I don't know what the main points of disagreement between Anton's Church of Satan and Temple of Set were. I'm not learned.
The disagreement was that he would meet somebody. The people who left all resented the fact that he could meet somebody like Sammy Davis Jr. and make him a priest instantly, just because LaVey's idea of being a Satanist is being a success in the real world on your own terms. So these people would see him meeting various celebrities and making them priests almost instantaneously, whereas these people were around for years and they wanted to be priests. So they wanted to have some sort of clout within the organization. at a certain point, they were all, what's the word? They were all just dissatisfied with the situation. They thought they weren't getting as much
disillusioned
approbation. Yeah, they were disillusioned.
Boyd,
they thought they deserved way more.
Yes, hang on. I want to ask you one more thing. We have full lines again, miraculously.
Okay.
They all filled up. I'm going to go into part of a track off of your Might release from 1995. I think we'll hear Deletion. We'll hear part of that, and then we'll come right back. The lines are all full, so anyone who wants to call, wait till someone else hangs up to call back in, and then we got to let Boyd go in about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll hopefully have him back on maybe in about 4 or 5 more months. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get a review of your Russian Federation tour when you come back from that. But we'll be back after this. Hang on.
When the kindly Roman emperor imagined that peace had settled down permanently upon the ancient world, even then, the dissimulating assassin's dagger was sharpening for his throat. And now, all lower organisms dream of a world of lovers, of arbitration instead of hostility, of conciliation between rival carnivores. The mechanism of deletion is silently under construction that, when completed, will sweep them off the face of the earth. Foolish and blind or mad are they who think the struggle for existence has ended. It has only begun. This planet is in its infancy, not in its decrepitude. The end of all things is far off. The kingdom of heaven is not at hand. Incessant is the rivalry for supremacy among men, and manifold are its metamorphoses. Not for a single hour, for a single second is there an armistice. Night and day the combat rages, and with renewed virulence on Sundays. When we fall asleep, and when we wake up, the clashing of weapons and the crunching of bones is sounding in our ears. Everywhere the sword is uplifted on man. Everywhere Cain's bludgeon is cracking skulls. The hands of congregations of the faithful are red with the blood of the innocent, yet how they boast of being washed clean in the blood of their brother, the Lamb. Eternal battle is the main condition upon which man holds his life tenure. When the brand is shattered in his hand, that is death or slavery. When his enemies are beneath his heel, that is life, honor, success. Indeed, the struggle between men is more pitiless and more unmerciful than among brutes. The brute beasts do not enslave, but permit the unfit to die off. Man enslaves his brother man on business principles, and makes fuel of the widow and the fatherless. The failures in life may be counted by millions, and everyone knows their horrible fate, their living death. Behold them being whirled into the blazing maw of the great iron furnaces. Overt action is not always needful for the drastic removal of lower organs. Very often, if left alone, degenerates cremate themselves. If given control of governmental mechanisms, they immediately commence to grind one another into mincemeat, that is to say, into dividends. Mentally, physically, morally, they're past redemption. Doomed souls are they. Nature having already condemned them, they provide each other with palatable poisons for slow but sure suicide. They build Gehenna fires and cast themselves headlong into blazes.
Okay, that's from the Might album, which came out in the mid-'90s. That was... Didn't you get a lot of the lyrics from reading was it Ragnar Redbeard's writings or something, Boyd?
Yes, I did. Well, on that particular album, all of them, because I'd been using little snippets of Ragnar Redbeard for a while, and then I thought, okay, I'm just going to do the ultimate Ragnar Redbeard thing, where I'm going to use all my favorite lyrics and just release a whole album of it. Because at the time, I really thought, what are the odds that anybody's ever going to read this book? Now the book has been reprinted numerous times, and it's considered a little classic. But at the time, it was something that, unless you were around in 1893 when the original came out, it's very unlikely that you'd be aware of it.
Well, I guess you figured they didn't have books on tape at the time, so you kind of took it in your own hands. That's all.
I don't know. I tried to. I was actually. What's the word? I was actually kind of solicited by somebody to do a books on tape version of Might is Right, and I got started on it so people could, just sit down and listen to it with my dulcet tones, reading the words, but. But it's really boring to listen to somebody just talk and talk and talk. So I do these things where I do 60 minutes of a thing, and I put it on, and I'd sort of lay down and listen to it back. And I would get through several minutes, and it would just put me to sleep. And this is all, this is all like wildly incendiary stuff, but it put me to sleep still, so I never finished that.
How far did you get? How many pages?
I think I got a few chapters or something. Because I got, 60 minutes of it done.
You know what?
But I just couldn't do it. It's difficult, too. It's difficult, even if you're familiar with the text, to read something and not, flub up, and then you have to go back. And these were the days where you didn't just have a computer where you could keep reading and then just edit out, the offensive part. Had to record virtually the whole thing over.
Well, if you press it up and put some echo on it and put a non-logo, you might be able to make some money off that, Boyd. To the hardcore followers, that is, I don't. But
it's in the public domain. Yeah, I could do that.
That the Might. This Might record, was there anything that you put in there original, or was it all straight readings, excerpts from the book? Was there anything that you added to that, or was it all from there?
It was all from the book.
Okay, because I bet you there's some people who have no idea. Some people who might just pick up the album, know the name, they might not know what it's about, but just wondering about that one. The Ye Who Fall song, when you're talking about the island of, Sumatra, with the turtles being eaten by the packs of lions, and it's the second song on there, Ye Who Fall. Do you know do you remember that one?
It's been a long time since I've made that or listened to it.
Right. But that I think is the most disturbing to me, one of your songs on any project, just to me, hearing about these big tortoises coming in from the water and then being eaten alive and thrown over on their shells by packs of lions or something. I forgot what you said. Very disturbing for me to listen to, but just wanted to let you know that as a personal disturbing thing with one of your works. All right, we have a call here. Let's go to the phone line, 687-3515. You're listening to WCSB Cleveland. Portions of the following broadcast might be found objectionable by certain members of the listening audience. Therefore, WCSB Cleveland recommends listener discretion. Viewpoints expressed are not necessarily those of the staff affiliates or the school or anything like that. I think we have a call from out of state. You're on the radio.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, how can we help you?
Hey, welcome to Cleveland, Boyd. Hey,
good to be there.
Good. I'm sorry I missed the early part of your conversation, but I did want to ask you.
We were talking Devil Dogs, David Bowie's album. We were talking about that for the first hour. It was pretty good.
Okay. Well, I was going to bring up just a flash from the past for Boyd. Maybe he could comment on it if he's interested. I grew up, reading my older brothers and sisters' books. and listened to their records when I was a kid. And so I really identified when I heard that you were a Rod McEwen fan, because I just never knew too many Rod McEwen fans, and I think he's kind of making a comeback nowadays, but I think you were the first person that I saw that was really kind of into him and influenced by him. I was just wondering if you could make a comment about that, please.
Yeah. Well, I got a bunch of his books and a bunch of his records, and I still, even now, I'm finding Rod McEwen records that I never had before, and it's amazing. Every one of them has something that's just mind-blowingly good and weird, and it's nothing you'd ever expect from Rod McEwen. So I covered a couple of his things, and people just sort of picked up on it. And people would ask me about it in interviews, and I would say, you should really check out Rod McEwen. I just found something, it was probably a couple years ago, he did this musical that is very, very weird that he calls something like, he calls it a Gothic opera or Gothic musical, and it's about this race of birds that feeds on people, and it's very strange. But I found this, and it was actually signed by Rod McEwen. I've got a bunch of stuff that has been signed by McEwen, but he's, I think, one of the underappreciated artists of the 20th century. I'm glad that I could turn on a whole new generation.
I don't think people took him too serious in a sense, even though his books were, really popular. I think the first thing I ever read was Listen to the Warm. And I read, that one poem he did, A Cat Named Sloopy, as corny as it may seem to some people, but when I heard him sing that on the album Listen to the Warm, I mean, that thing almost made me cry, because it just kind of just shows you just the simple little things in life of just of taking things for granted. And I just think he's a really sensitive guy, and I really appreciate him too.
Yeah, well, I think he was rejected. He's the best-selling poet of all time. So yeah. I think at a certain point, people just rejected him based on that fact. It's like, well, if everybody likes this, it can't be any good. But even in those books like Listen to the Warm, I'm not sure if it's in Listen to the Warm, but maybe it is. There's a song that I covered where it's a poem that I covered where he says, if I had a pistol to hold in my hand, I'd hunt down and murder the good humor man. I'd pour sticky ice cream all over his wound and stop him forever from playing that tune. I mean, this guy talking about, it's a poem by the world's most beloved poet talking about killing the good humor man because he doesn't like that song that the ice cream truck plays.
Yeah, that's classic. Hey, thanks for your time, and I appreciate all of your great opinions through the years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, we have another caller here. You're on the radio station.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
I had a question to Boyd. Have you read King Mob, and did you know they used part of the wolf's angle to put on houses to be destroyed during the riots?
During the riots where?
Oh, the riots in England in 1760, I think. King Mob, the whole book is about English riots.
Oh, wow, no. I did not know that.
It's one of the lines is taken out, but they used it was like a check with a slash through it, meaning that the house was to be burned and looted because a Catholic lived there, or they didn't give money towards the mob that was going through England. Another question was about the Hatchet Men. Have you read that book about the Chinese Tong gangs?
No, I haven't.
It talked about the tunnels underneath, and there was like a concentrated effort to find these legendary tunnels, and basically they're just big basements where people were sleeping. They couldn't find any tunnels, but wondered if you had knowledge of literature, or have you seen tunnels going under San Francisco?
No, I just talked to a lot of business owners, and because the major businesses back in the day were run by the Tong, and
Right.
a lot of the alarms I responded to were set off by rats, and some people pretended there weren't any rats, and then other people were just like very easygoing about it. And they said, yeah, it was set off by rats because these tunnels still exist, and no matter how many times we seal them over with cement, the rats chew through and they go running through the store and they eat this or that and they set off the alarms. So I assumed I'd heard rumors about the Tong tunnels. I assumed that there are tunnels. Or if there aren't, maybe they've been cemented up or something. I don't know. Bricked up.
I had a question also about 88. There was that Manson movie, kind of fictionalized thing on the Manson murder. What was the name of that movie? That was pretty. It had a great soundtrack and a Mexican Manson. That was fun.
Yeah, that was called The Other Side of Madness.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and
I
we
wondered
got
about that.
the copy we showed. We got is supposedly the only existing copy on Earth, and I'm forgetting the name of the director, but we had to get it directly from him because when this movie was about to be released to theaters, what's that guy's name? Warren Beatty and Roman Polanski bought up every single copy they could get their hands on and destroyed it, burned them.
Wow.
So there's one copy left. So if you were there and you got to see that movie, I don't think it's been released on DVD yet.
Sure wish I had that soundtrack. That was pretty amazing. Still remember part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
And it almost seems like some of the footage they cut in was just like the actual Manson people out at Spawn Ranch dancing around fires and stuff.
Yeah.
And
the
one of the movie
Manson
posters.
Movie poster?
Yeah. I'm getting my wires crossed now. I'm thinking of a movie called Satan Sadist that had about 3 different one-sheets, and one of them was just all like actual newspaper headlines and articles about the Manson family. So I'm getting that screwed up. Never mind.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye.
Take care.
Hey, boy, you went out to Spawn Ranch yourself, right?
Yeah.
What'd you find when you went out there?
A bunch of buried Volkswagens. They would steal these Volkswagens, so there were still like hills where you could walk down paths and see Volkswagen bumpers sticking out. And that's actually the place I mentioned earlier, where there's a place across from the Spawn Ranch called the Iverson Ranch. And that's where I climbed up to the top of the hill and saw the rattlesnake.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of rattlesnakes around Spawn Ranch. There was like some cave there where Charlie used to have it full of these silk pillows and stuff. And a gal would arrive, and the first night there, she would spend the night in this cave with Charlie. But every time I tried to go in there, I'd hear a rattlesnake in the back of it, and I'd run out.
Yeah,
but there was still stuff left. I mean, there was a rock he sat on and would play guitar, and everybody would sit around it. That rock was still there. A bunch of stuff was. I mean, when I first went there, it wasn't that long after they had actually been there. I mean, it seemed like a long time in terms back then, but now looking back at it, it was like not even a decade after the Manson family had been living there. So there was still a lot of stuff around.
What was the year that you actually went to meet him, and who arranged for you to be able to do that?
Well, I wrote a letter to him because Black Flag was supposed to release this new album of Manson songs. So I was looking forward to that because I liked the first album. And then they decided not to do it. So I just wrote him and said, I'm kind of in the music business, sort of, and I know several people who would release your album in a heartbeat. So we started corresponding, and eventually he said, you should come over and get on my list. And I went over to San Quentin, and I filled out this paperwork, and the guards were just saying, "You're crazy. You don't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting on this guy's list." And then I got a letter from Manson a month or two later. Said, "Hey, you've been approved. Come on over."
So you have to you have to correspond with him. He says, "This is one of the people that can visit me," and then there's a further test after that they have to do a background check on you or something?
No, I'm sure they did a background check straight away.
But the guard was saying it's so rare that he puts someone on there to be approved to come in that good luck, and then he put you on there, pretty much.
I don't think he was saying it's rare that he would. I think they're just saying they want to keep as few, they want to have as few people as possible visiting this guy.
Okay, all right. And then
it was highly unlikely that a high-profile prisoner like that would just, get somebody added to his list, because they're usually criteria. Len Frome told me that a lot of the criteria was stuff like they would put you on the list if you'd had previous contact with them. So she was saying, I should. When I was writing to her, she was telling me on the phone that I should fill out a thing to get on her list, and that I should hint around that I visited her in jail when she was in jail in San Diego, and I lived in San Diego. So I think it's stuff like that. I think usually you have to be a family member. You have to have previous, interactions with the people.
Yeah, that's what's interesting to me is the politics about visiting someone like that, because it's not just someone that writes him a letter. Well, I guess in your case, he responded to putting his what was it, lie at the time wasn't put out widely, wasn't released widely on a label or anything. The lie recording. Is that what Black Flag wanted to do, or they wanted to do new recordings?
No, they'd gotten a brand new album from him, and they were going to put that out.
Oh, okay, all right. So this was newer stuff, not the Lie 68 or whatever sessions that it was. But on the list, you kind of the Fromm had to. She kind of guided you on how to do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at the time. Although I don't know that. Yeah, I think she was saying that as well as that, I think she was saying that if I could say that I was like a kid at the time of the Spahn Ranch, that I'd actually visited all of them and knew all of them from that period of time.
Because I don't know, in the modern times, I don't know if that's still the case, because there's a new generation of people that are visiting him now. I don't know if anyone's from the time you saw him is still on the list, but I just thought
that obviously wasn't necessarily true. Maybe that was true with her. Maybe that was more true with her because she tried to shoot the President of the United States.
Right. That little incident that made headlines.
And Manson's crime, such as it is, if it had even happened, that was in the far distant past. So.
How did the second time you got to visit him come about? You left on obviously good terms on the first visit, and I guess it was for an extended time. And was the discussion about other things besides putting out his recording that SST Records had, or was it did it go in many different directions? The first conversation, which led to the second visit.
Many different directions. Many different directions.
But he was very interested.
I mean, you can't keep the guy on one topic. He just talks about. But I mean, we talked about stuff like his favorite TV shows and stuff. And then he told me stories of weird things that happened when he was out of prison in the 60s.
So a whole lot of different topics were talked about. It probably changing the topic.
Yeah, I mean, I could our handful of visits, I could write an entire book of stories and anecdotes that had never been in any of those other books.
So
the guy got a lot done. He was only out of jail for several years, but he had a lot of great stories. He did a lot of living in that period of time.
Would he change topics very fast? Like talk about something, then you would talk, and he would move on to something else. Is that how it went, or was it? How was the pace of the topics that he would speak on with you?
It was a stream of consciousness. I mean, it's like what you see on TV, but even like way beyond that. Because on TV they have enough material that they can edit it down and make it cohesive. And this is cohesive if you understand the way he thinks, but not cohesive in terms of what most people understand.
The second visit you had was separated by how many months from the first?
Oh no, I went over like every week or every other week.
So after that first visit, you were pretty much cool with him and had a kind of an open pass. You could come in when you wanted, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, I only had a couple days off work, so I had to go in on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I tried to go in as early as possible. He said, come as often as you want, come as early as you want, stay as late as you want. So I did that, as long as the situation was going on like that. Was it in a room with other people visiting other people at the same time, or was it a private area, or out in open with a lot of others? It was a great big long room, and it's the room where people can have what they call touch visits, where they're just sitting across a table from somebody in a large room. So you don't have to talk on a phone or talk through glass. But at the very end of the room, they have a big roped-off area for, prisoners that are considered, high profile or maybe especially dangerous or something. And that's where I saw Manson. All the other people were like, this was a big long room, and all the other people were all throughout the room, and there was one part of it that was empty, and there was a huge, what do you call that? A huge wooden platform where a couple of guards could keep an eye on it at all times. But there weren't guards standing right there with you. They were up watching, or were sometimes they completely... They were up watching, and there was one by the door, and the door was fairly close to that. They didn't allow cameras back then in there, or did they? No, they had an area that you could be photographed with prisoners, but the prisoner you couldn't pay for it. They don't accept any money. The prisoner has to bring something called dockets. The prisoner pays for it. So every time I went over there, Manson didn't have the docket, so I never got a picture with him. And what he'd always say, damn, Rice, if I knew you were coming today, I would have brought some of them dockets. Yeah, that would have been... He never did. That's too bad. That's something to have there. Not too many people would have that. And did you meet any of his the other prisoners there, or was it just strictly visit him, get searched, and then you're out of there? Yeah, I met a number of his friends. I met some people who were visiting him who had been, the guy had been living at Spawn Ranch when all that was happening. And then I met some very strange woman who evidently had 11 children or something, thought Manson was Christ. Okay, the usual story. The Manson is Christ story. A lot of people have that. Yeah, that it's the beard. It's, Yeah. And when was the last, what was the last year you visited him? Like late 80s? Yeah, probably 88 or something.
And people say that there was some kind of you had a little argument with him or something, and that was the reason you didn't want to. You were through with him at that point or something. I don't know if you want to go into that at all.
No, I just arrived at the prison with a bullet in my pocket. I was arrested. I was taken to Marin County Jail and taken off his list.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that part of it, Boyd. What was?
Yeah. I was charged with smuggling an explosive device into a penitentiary.
Why did you have a bullet in your pocket?
I'd gone out when I was an alarm agent. I had to go out on a yearly basis to qualify at the range, and had a bullet in my pocket.
So it was sort of an accident. You didn't realize it was there, or you just didn't think that they would make a big deal out of it, sort of.
I didn't. When they discovered it, I didn't think they'd make a big deal out of it, especially because the guard who was going over me with the metal detector was this really nice lesbian who I'd made friends with her, and she was into collecting World War II memorabilia. So I thought, especially because it was her, that she'd probably say, we'll just throw this in the trash. Nobody needs to know about it. But everybody heard the metal detector going off, so everybody did know about it.
And how long were you detained for?
Over the weekend.
Oh, wow. So you had to, it was on a Friday then, and they just kept you over the weekend. Did you have to go to stand in front of a judge or anything, or did they just let you go?
I don't think I had to go in front of a judge.
They just kept...
I think the charges were just not filed against me. I think that's what it was.
But you did. They did take an explanation from you of why you had that.
Yeah. I told somebody. Nobody believed me. Nobody believes me to this very day. But but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So you spent they have a it was a holding cell inside of the. What was the prison at the time? Was that San Quentin or?
The prison was San Quentin. The jail I went to was like over in Marin County. It was the Marin County Jail, and it was this building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Did it have a little waterfall? A little waterfall in the middle?
Futuristic. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry about that.
I don't recall a waterfall. We couldn't really see outside. It was we could tell we were in a groovy modern place, but there was sort of like weird smoky fiberglass windows.
Who were you with? Who was in the room with you in the holding area? Other people?
A lot of African American gentlemen.
And do you know what they were in for?
There aren't black people in Mill Valley and Marin County. And they were telling me what they were in there for, and it was like these unbelievable, hilarious stories. Being chased through cornfields by helicopters and stuff.
Being chased by in cornfields?
That's what this one guy said. He said, God damn, I just pulled over to rob a liquor store, and then they're chasing me. The police are called, and they're chasing me, and I get out of my car, and I'm running through a cornfield, and then they call the helicopter, and the helicopter's threatening to shoot me, and, it's like, woe is me.
That's a great opening scene of an action movie or something. I don't know. Did they believe?
It's like, I'm in Marin County. There's a liquor store. But I might as well, It's like he was essentially saying, when I went in to rob that liquor store, I had no idea I would be chased by the police in a helicopter and end up in Marin County Jail tonight.
Yeah, with someone like you and a few other people. Did anyone ask you what you were in there for?
Yeah, of course.
And did you give them the story? Did you make something a little more believable up?
I don't even remember. Because I usually try to, it's like if I'm in a taxi and somebody says, "Hey, where did you just come from?" I'll think of the stupidest place on earth. I won't say, "Yeah, I've just been to Lithuania." I'll say, "Yeah, I've just come from Bisbee, Arizona."
Right. It really cuts down the conversation.
What were you doing down there? "Oh, I'm a janitor. I was sent down there to clear out some lines."
You dumb down the conversation so much where they have no more interest in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them to shut up, because if I tell them like a little bit of the truth, then it's like, "Oh, so you make a lot of money doing that?" And it's just like, oh, fuck.
Right. That's what it'll come down to most of the time if they don't know you. We got some more calls here, Boyd. I'm going to take a few more.
Okay.
And you still got that cup of tea?
It's out in the kitchen right now. I'm actually finishing off a nice bowl of Neapolitan ice cream that my girlfriend gave me.
Oh, you're a very quiet eater. I didn't hear you making any very obnoxious noises eating a bunch of ice cream there. So that's a skill. That's another skill we can add to your resume there. You're on the radio station. Sorry for the wait.
That's okay. Hey, Mr. Rice, you and I both know that December 16th is the best day of the year, at least for another couple of years, right? Hello?
What are you thinking of?
I'm a December 16th baby also. Anyway,
oh, great. Did you hear? If that is the case, did you hear that somebody has just changed the horoscope so that there are 13 signs, and the new sign that covers December 16th is Ophiuchus, the serpent.
Exclusively for December 16th?
No, it's for the period of time where December 16th falls.
Oh, okay. Hey, I did a little research. You have an interesting profile, and the main reason I called was the professor seemed like he was trying to nail you down in getting you to cop out to something that you believe in. But let me throw this at you and see what you think about this, okay? And maybe it's because I'm a Sag and don't know any better, anyway, if you have a belief in something, doesn't that narrow your field of vision?
That's why I've been against that, because I think that, if you have one belief, then it defines other and leads to other beliefs, and so on and so on and so on.
And if you have a belief in something, then a lot of times you don't even want to look at this or hear this because it's not what you believe. And if you have no belief, then you at least investigate this other item, and thereby expanding, if nothing else, at least your knowledge on, other than just a limited scope of items that you may just believe in. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense?
I would agree with that.
I mean, to me, as long as I claim I have no belief, because people ask me, "Do you believe this? Do you believe in that? Do you?" And no, I can believe in it, but I got to convince myself I don't at times, just so that I can broaden my scope and don't look at things with horses' blinders on. You know what I'm trying? Does any of this make sense to you?
Oh, no. I mean, that's kind of what I've thought since I was a teenager, or maybe younger than a teenager. It's just, I never believed the same things other people did, and then I thought, I'm looking for something to replace those things, and it's like I thought, I don't need to replace this belief with another belief. Why do I have to believe in anything?
Yeah, right.
Like I believe in, it's like I trust the evidence of my senses, and I really don't need a lot more than that. And, it's there are areas in life where you have to trust. I mean, you get on an airplane, you have to trust that the pilot's knowing what he's doing. You have to trust that the person who fixed the engine, and it's like they have to be that way. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, if
whereas
I had a
you can't always trust that a chef is going to make a good meal.
No, you can't. You sure can't.
They aren't held to the same high standards as an airplane pilot or something.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you something. While you was living in San Francisco, did you ever frequent a location called the Family Pharmacy?
Family Pharmacy?
Yeah, it was a coffee shop.
No.
I was hoping you might have. Okay, well, anyway, I just wanted to throw that thought at you there. You got some interesting pictures. I like that picture with you and JC that's on the Google search engine, where you took that picture with Johnny Cash.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. We were just watching an episode yesterday of Johnny Cash on Columbo, and it was bringing back memories of seeing him here in Denver.
Yeah, there's some of your fans that took pictures of themselves with you at their side. They also posted that up on the Google. I typed in your name and then pictures afterwards, and it comes up images, Boyd Rice images. You click on that and you go down through there. You can see all these pictures that your fans took when they took pictures, had pictures of themselves taken with you at their side, and they posted them up there. And there's some really good, interesting ones on there. I enjoyed looking through them.
Cool.
I tell you what, I also visited your website, and I definitely like that picture of Nancy Sinatra, the one where she signed that album to you.
Yeah, that's classic, isn't it?
Oh, I love that. Well, see, she was my first adult male crush on a female when I went and seen Cat Ballou for the very first time, back when it first came out. And, I mean, up to that point in time, I knew girls were for hugging and kissing, but when I seen her on the screen, I realized they were for far more than just hugging and kissing. I started looking at girls in just a slightly different manner. But,
well, with me, it was Julie Newmar's Catwoman.
Oh, really? I
just thought, that's why boys like girls. I
never seen her without her costume on, so I yeah, it was always, everybody on that stupid show had all this makeup and costumes on. Didn't they have 2 or 3 different Catwomans?
Yeah, but there's only one real Catwoman.
Yeah, but
there was Lee Merriweather and there was Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, but I never seen any of them without their Catwoman costume on. I have no idea what none of them look like unless I get on the internet and look it up. So I can't fall back on that. But there was something else. I did a lot of reading while you and Drykor was talking. I did a lot of reading. I looked up your occult leader, Levy, and did a little research on him and his family and all that good stuff. And it made some very interesting reading, let me tell you. And the pictures were out of sight. I loved them. But the main reason I called was to ask you. But let me continue on that line of thought before I forget it. Okay. Now, if you convince yourself you have no beliefs, that broadens your horizon. Thereby, you absorb more information than you would if you have a narrow vision and say, "Well, I believe this, so I'm not even going to look at that." So,
I think I've explained my position on belief.
That's what I'm getting
thoroughly as needs be at this point.
Didn't you say you wrote a book where you had a chapter called "You Hate Philosophy"?
I wrote a book called No, and every chapter is a topic that I don't believe in. So it's like most people write a book about philosophy, and it's like, this is what I believe, that's what I believe, whereas mine was...
you don't believe in...
These are 45 things I don't believe in.
What you're saying is you have no love of knowledge. Is that what I'm to understand by you saying you maybe I misunderstood. You said you have no faith in philosophy, love of knowledge, or you do not believe in...
No, I have a love of knowledge. I just don't. I think this is about the end of this conversation. I think this is ceasing to be productive at this point. But thanks for calling.
Well, thanks for calling in. If anyone has something to say, 687-3515. We have a few more minutes here with Boyd Rice, and then we'll let him finish his Neapolitan ice cream. Or maybe he's already finished it, but...
Yeah, that's long gone.
Yeah, that's long gone. You got to move on to the next thing, which will keep your throat from getting dry from fielding these calls here. Someone called in, and they wanted to know, what do you feel about the Secret Service sex scandal, if you even care about that, or the DEA thing in Colombia?
No, I don't care about that.
Yeah, we'll move on here. Have you performed live with any of the side projects that you've done? I know you've done a show with Frank. How do you say his name? Tovey, who's passed away earlier on in the earlier part of the 80s. You've done some shows with him. Has Scorpion Wind or anything done live shows?
Yeah. When that album first came out, we toured Europe, and we had a whole segment of the concert where we did Scorpion Wind live. And then Frank Tovey, Fat Gadget, I used to tour extensively with him in the early part of the 80s, and he'd always do an encore where I would join him, and he would do some super minimal version of Fat Gadget song, and I would punctuate it with bits of noise from this instrument I had invented at the time.
So the recordings that you did with him, which were released, were all done sort of improvised with stuff that was found around a warehouse or something? Because that sounds pretty interesting how that came about. I don't know if that's someone's favorite record, but just reading about it made me wonder about that project.
Yeah, we recorded it, I forget what it was a famous place because members of Depeche Mode or something recorded some stuff there. But it was this, I think it was called Blackfriars, and it was this old church that had been converted into a recording studio. And we just went in there with nothing but like a few ideas of what we wanted to do, and there was stuff laying around the studio that we turned into musical instruments and scraped across the floor, or and a lot of it was we made tape loops, but with the old, back in the day there was tape that was 3 inches or something, tall, and we'd make loops out of those, and we could have 16 or 24 tracks on a single loop, and we could bring, various ones in and out.
So there's probably there's probably lots of stuff that was never put out on the record, right?
Yeah. And then there's, because we did this thing too. Me and Frank did a thing at the Institute of Contemporary Art in London where it was me and him, and it was just very minimal, very loud, very noisy. And it was the first time, what are they called? Something Youth? Sonic Youth, yeah. It was the first time Sonic Youth had played in the UK, and they opened for me and Frank Tovey. And this was a great show we did that everybody really loved, and somehow they want to put it out, but it's been misplaced because these tapes get stored in various buildings. I remember they used to have all their stuff stored in EMI, in an EMI building, which was some weird Art Deco building out in the middle of nowhere. But that's gone missing. And I've also done live stuff with Rose McDowell. We did that record called Spell, and I did a song with Tiffany Anders.
Okay, I didn't know that I didn't know that Spell had ever performed at all live. So.
Well, it was like, I forget what the deal was. It's, we just did like 3 songs or something. I think she was performing live, and I happened to be in England, and she said, "Oh, it would be great if you could just show up and we could do, some songs." And so we did. But it's not the sort of stuff that lends itself, except for those few songs we did. A lot of this stuff doesn't really lend itself to live performance.
The Big Red Balloon, was that a fan favorite?
I'm not sure that it was. That was our single from the album, and, it certainly wasn't a favorite with the BBC. We went on BBC Radio, I was there for 2 weeks, and we were on BBC, and the broadcaster that sends the music out to the ships at sea and stuff, we promoted the hell out of that record, and, nothing happened.
It was promoted to longshoremen or people on boats. What is that about that you were just mentioning?
There's a military broadcasting radio station that goes only to military bases and the ships at sea. And you've probably heard, it's like you hear this in old movies, like, to bases all over the world and the ships at sea. This is blah, 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 blah. So it's like, I thought this was just some fake thing that was made up for old war movies, but we actually went on that station, and they actually said that. So it was weird for me, you're picturing people on destroyers or aircraft carriers listening to me and Rose do an interview, and then they play our songs.
Yeah, I wondered if you got a lot of sales from that on the different. Would you ever like to play for any these USO or play for the troops in another country? I know it sounds ridiculous, but if that opportunity came up, would you take it? It's very, it'd be a very strange pick to pick Non to perform for the troops alongside Toby Keith or Kid Rock or something. But I think that I just wondered if that would something.
Like Total War, maybe.
Yeah, that might get them psyched up for a mission or something. We have a call here, and then I want to ask you a few more things, and we're going to have to let you go for the day, and maybe have you back in a few more months after your grand tour of Mother Russia. You're on the radio station.
Inappropriate.
Hey, how are you doing? He didn't have a response. I'd be nice to let him on even after that kind of nonsense, and there was no follow-up to that. Nothing. No follow-up. Boyd, I once heard that someone, you told me that you heard, I don't know if it's true or not, something you heard, that someone might have committed suicide listening to one of your recordings. I think I heard this in 1998 from you. I don't know if this was fact or if it's just something that you heard about, or do you know more about that story?
I can't even remember what that story would have been. I told you this in 1989, you say?
No, I went, the only time I ever saw you in person was when you came to Speak in Tongues in 1998 in Cleveland. And I think I talked to you very quickly after the show, and I said something about something, and you said, I think there was someone that might have, or maybe committed a bunch of killings listening to your music. Maybe it wasn't a suicide. Maybe it was someone that committed some killings after listening to your music. I don't believe you said you knew it for a fact, but you heard it somewhere. I don't know if you remember anything about that.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember precisely what you're talking about. But I'd really prefer not to put this out there because
okay, well,
because people are always saying it's like, somebody's going to listen to your record and they're going to blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
This is Judas Priest.
No, that's nonsense. And then it's,
bad.
If I started saying, I remember what you're talking about. It was this guy in...
Yeah, I know. we can
a
drop.
bunch of people told me this, and it was a very weird circumstance where a guy flew to Disneyland and then flew back to the place he lived and did something awful.
Okay,
and everybody in that part of the world was saying, Disneyland, give me a break. This guy has to listen to Music Martinis and Misanthropy. So I have no idea, but, I don't necessarily want to.
No, I wasn't asking as far as an exploitational thing. It was just a curious thing, because I know that, that people are blaming Insane Clown Posse recently because someone that was listening to their stuff. That's the more recent example from a Judas Priest in the mid-'80s or something like that. Let's hear a little bit of your Ragnarok Rune. Was this a 12-inch release, and then they put it on CD after? This was a World Serpent release?
Yeah, I never wanted to put it on CD because it was a high-concept thing where it was a picture of this rune, and the round part that bound everything together, it wasn't a real rune, it was a rune somebody made up. You would put the needle of your record player in that round groove, and it would just play this sound for as long as you left the needle in there. So that was the concept. And they said, Boyd, you've got to put this out on CD. And I said, that'll be stupid. But they talked me into doing it, and it's like I've regretted it ever since. It's like, I felt sorry for people who bought that.
So it's a single track on the vinyl? It's one.
Yeah.
It's one piece.
Yeah, it's a loop. It's a circular loop in the vinyl itself. It's a line that runs into itself, so you can just put the needle there, and it'll just play for hours or days
until someone goes and goes sane, until they snap out of their insanity and go sane listening to this. Now, this was released under your name, Boyd Rice, and not Non. What was this signaling? Was this the start of something you wanted to do? Releases under Boyd Rice, but this was the only one, or was?
No, it's generally the stuff that I did for Mute, which was noisier stuff, was Non, and the stuff that I did on World Serpent, I used my own name because generally they were very distinct from one another.
And as you said, you were upset with the CD pressing because they did it once at 78 and then once at 45 and then another at 33. So it's 3 tracks on a CD, but on a vinyl it's just one. And you didn't approve of it being put on CD at different speeds, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's just for a long time because World Serpent had great distribution through Tower Records at one point in time. So there's a point in time where this was the only thing that was available from me in Tower Records. And World Serpent sold their CDs for a lot of money to begin with, like, $24. And then because it was an import, and there was import taxes on it, these things at Tower Records would be $36.
Wow.
So every time I went into Tower Records and I saw this is the only record of mine in Tower Records, and I knew I had an audience and people that would buy virtually anything I put out, I just would wince because I hated the fact that people who liked me would be spending $36 on something that's ultimately going to be a disappointment to them. I mean, in retrospect, I like Ragnarok Rune, but it was just like there was a long time where every time I saw that, I wanted to just kick those people at World Serpent who talked me into this.
Yeah, and also someone that might have heard of you somewhere else, and they see the record, and that's the only thing they get from you. It's not a good representation of what the past stuff is about. The sound.
Exactly, it's not a good. If they don't have anything and they get this, they probably think, God, Boyd Rice is really greedy, and he just gypped me. I spent $36 on this CD I don't like. I'm never going to get anything by him again.
Well, we're going to listen. We're not listening to the full 14-minute version. We're going to listen to like a minute excerpt, and then we're going to come back, wrap it up, and that'll be it, Boyd. So hang on for another minute. We'll hear a little bit of Ragnarok Rune, and then we'll be out of here.
Okay.
Well, let's see. Hey, Mom, I got $40 for Christmas, and there's a Metallica double live album with a VHS tape, which I can buy, or I can buy this thing about Boyd Rice that I've heard. He's been on TV, and he's in this Church of Satan thing that I'm wondering about. I really want to try out a Boyd Rice product, so I think this Ragnarok Rune will give me a good introduction. I'm going to pass up the double Metallica live album with the VHS, and then they put on Ragnarok Rune, and they hear this for 15 minutes, Boyd, and they never go back to you again. They should have gone with the Metallica Tower Records, but anyway, this is the Ragnarok Rune. I guess the original version, because the other two versions I think are speeded up on the CD, as they weren't originally intended to be. We have another call here, which will be the final call of the night. He's calling from Kentucky. So, well, you're on the radio station.
Hi, Boyd Rice.
Hi.
Hi, well, I think you kind of answered what I was going to ask you here. I've got a piece of vinyl in front of me, and I'm not sure when I purchased it, probably back in, like, the very early 80s, but it's just a black cover and a black label on the 12-inch that says playable at any speed. All selections by Boyd Rice, recorded December 75 and January 76. And I don't know if and it is Mute Records, as you said earlier, and I don't know if the cut we just heard was actually on this, but it's very much like that, like repetitive machine noises or sounds, and of course the different speeds give it a different pitch, you know. But I was just kind of wondering what this was all about. And unfortunately, as you mentioned a scenario, if this is the only piece of Boyd Rice that you own, you can almost imagine why it kind of turns you off, you know. I apologize for not knowing much else, but it's an interesting piece of vinyl I've had for a long time. I was wondering, is that what we were talking about earlier that was being pressed on CD now?
No, the Black Albums never come out on CD because part of the concept is for it to be played at 4 different speeds. So
would the fourth speed be 16?
Yeah, 16, 33, 45, and 78.
Okay, right on. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, that I've had this for a long time, and I've actually even loaned it to a college professor trying to kind of decipher what it was all about, but it's very unusual, and it's a privilege to get to talk with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for calling up. The Black Album was your first release, right?
Yeah.
And that's from 75. What we just listened to was from, I think, released in 1992, the Ragnarok Rune, so it's not the same recording as he was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but the first one got a lot of attention. I went over in the 70s and sold copies to Rough Trade, and copies ended up with Genesis P-Orridge, and the guy who just was going to start Mute Records, and some of the most influential critics over there. And I sold very few copies to Rough Trade, but they ended up with all these people. And the next thing I know, they were writing about it in the Daily Average newspaper. There was an article about it in Cosmopolitan, British Cosmopolitan for women. It got caused quite a stir.
You had an incredible streak of luck with that first release. I've heard people talk about it, that it got into influential people's hands early on, this limited, rare, unknown, unmarked album, and then it just took off from there. You had a great, lucky first introduction to people with your first recording. That's kind of strange.
Yeah. It's the strange thing is when I came back to San Diego from visiting London for the first time, I was already had a recording contract with Mute Records. Mute Records really didn't even exist then, and it's now one of the major independent record companies, and I've been with them for 33 years. And at the time in San Diego, they put out a list of what they expected of San Diego bands, and Non was voted least likely to succeed. And yet, before I did my first concert, I was already known by the most influential critics in England, and already had a recording contract. So, it seemed like a big struggle back then. But when I look at it retrospectively, I think, God, I totally did luck out.
Someone up there was looking out for you, Boyd. One of the spirits was looking out for you. Was the first? When did you meet Robert Turman, and how involved was he with the first record?
No, not at all with the first record.
When did he come in?
He had the first record. Everything in the first record was recorded by at least like a few years before I knew Robert Turman. He came in when me and my friend Steve Hitchcock decided to start a band, and I knew vaguely that the guy who worked at the record store I liked to go to, had guitars and amplifiers and stuff. So I sort of popped in and said, "Hey, me and Steve Hitchcock are forming a band. Would you like to do something with us?" And he did.
Did you work well with him?
Yeah. I mean, because he was a guy with equipment and a tape recorder, but he wasn't the idea guy. So he didn't mind me, coming in and saying, "Oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do the other." Because, he wasn't the kind of person who would come in and, left to his own devices, he wouldn't have listened to anything like this. He had absolutely no interest in this kind of music. What he was into at the time was, and at the time I didn't think anything of it, but he liked David Cassidy. It's like in retrospect, I can appreciate that much more than I did at the time.
Oh yeah. You have, I think, covered one of the Partridge Family songs on one of your records, and I believe you still watch television shows of them.
Every now and again, it's back on TV now. So if I'm up at the right time and the right channel's on, I watch it again.
That's I you mentioned Mr. Ed also, so I guess you're up late at night, probably with it on right now in the background. What do you got on the TV right now?
Oh, actually, we're about a minute away from the Highway Patrol. Let's see. I'll see if I can turn this on and you can hear the opening chords of the Highway Patrol. What happened to the... it's down here. La, 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 la.
Does anyone ever bang on your walls? Let the neighbors get upset?
No, I think these walls are fairly thick. I don't think the thing I worry about is like the commercials late at night are way louder than the normal shows. So I'm watching a normal show and it's like perfectly normal, and then this thing comes on. Oh, darn! See, that's the beginning of the Highway Patrol.
Yeah,
I missed it.
I can make something out, but I can't make out any medley. Sounds a little distorted here.
Well, I should have gotten up and walked across the room and held this out. But
you tried.
But if you haven't seen the show in a while, you should check it out, because Broderick Crawford is like, he's very intense, and he always has, at the end of the show, there's some summation. And last night, these guys were put into cuffs and led away, and Broderick Crawford just kind of shook his head and sneered and said, "Punks." That was the end of the show. Broderick Crawford calling these criminals punks.
Was it a freeze frame or was it just fade out?
It's not a freeze frame.
It faded out. The credits roll over when he said punks.
No, the credits were a little bit. Oh my God, he's like on a golf course. He's wearing golf clothes. I've never seen Broderick Crawford in golf clothes, boy.
Special treat.
The ceaseless war against crime.
I'm not going to take any more of your viewing pleasure away, Boyd. Thank you for staying up with us for a few hours here. I'm glad that your voice lasted this long with Neapolitan, or what is it called? What is the name of the three colors?
Yeah, Neapolitan.
Neapolitan, not Cosmopolitan ice cream, and a gray Earl tea you also drank?
Earl Grey.
Yeah, so you've had a little bit to help you out here. You fielded many different calls, and I hope some of them were interesting to you. And
oh yeah.
And also you have a Facebook page now, which I didn't know that you had recently.
I do. It's Daniel Miller from Mute Records was just here, and we went out to dinner. And he just sort of said, Boyd, you should really do something on Facebook,
Little arm twisting, and you did it.
So, and he said, we got somebody at the record company who will set it all up for you, because I was saying, I don't know anything about this electronic stuff. And he said, we'll set it all up for you, and it's really easy. So thus far it's been fun. The ironic thing is that, I purposely never got on Facebook because I didn't like all the nonsense that went with it, and the narcissism and like internet feuds and stuff. So it's like I finally am talked into getting on Facebook, and all these people I know are like, finally they've been on Facebook the whole time, and they're all getting off, and they're all citing the very reasons that I didn't want to be on it to begin with.
How many friends are you up to now?
Just like 300 or something.
Oh, that's pretty good for starting. I think there's a few Boyd Rice pages that aren't you. They're just fan pages that would put stuff up. So
yeah, there are a number of them. It's funny because there was just one. There's one up that had like 3,000 or 4,000 people on it, and this guy made an announcement one day saying, "I don't want to administer this anymore," and all these people I know were writing him saying, we'll do it, and it just vanished off Facebook.
Yeah, the wonders just went public. You're listening to WCSB Cleveland. Portion of the following broadcast may be found objectionable by certain member listening audience for WCSB Cleveland. Recommends listener discretion advised. And Boyd Rice is now on Facebook, and I guess you are putting out the new non-album, which is more return to what would you describe the noise on this newer release? More harsh, would you describe it?
Yeah. Well, it's, more so than the things in recent years. It's sort of a return to my roots, except and there are actually some live recordings from 1979 and stuff on there.
Oh, wow.
But I've been listening to, going through some old tapes lately. I heard some of my early concerts, and they're like much harsher than I remember. I mean, they're really a lot more unforgiving than the stuff I did even, in the early 80s. Because I sort of started off saying, I don't care whether people like it or not, So that comes across in some of these recordings.
Yeah, you listen with new ears. You left them off like over 20 some years ago, so now it's almost like a brand new experience, I guess. We're gonna leave. You also have that No reissue coming out. The book No, that's coming out soon.
Reissue of No, a reissue of Standing in Two Circles, reissue of the stuff I did with Coil. The Sickness of Snake stuff, on vinyl. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff coming. Oh, there's a thing. There's a band in New York called Pursuit, and they wanted me to do guest vocals on a version of "Boys Keep Swinging" by David Bowie. So then they decide they're going to have 6 different DJs do remixes of various songs on this record, and all 6 of them, and some of these guys like remix stuff for Erasure and Madonna and stuff. So they asked these guys to remix something. They all wanted to remix the Voice Keeps Swinging song with my vocals. So this record company is releasing on vinyl a 12-inch single with 6 different remixes of me singing this song, or doing this song. I don't really sing.
You probably won't be able to recognize your own voice on some of them, I bet. Put some auto-tune on Boyd Rice. That would be a new thing to hear.
Yeah, I don't recognize myself, actually.
And so what you're saying is it's probably a good time to be a Boyd Rice fan if you're a fan in any way, because there's a lot of stuff happening in right now and in the future.
There's a ton of stuff happening. I mean, I'm working on sort of a coffee table book of my art. This book is supposed to be due later this year, where I've edited it with this Australian gallery owner named Martin McIntosh, but it's a whole art book of thrift store paintings. You know, like people's weird demented paintings that end up in thrift stores, and you can buy them for $3 or $4. I've been collecting them since the 70s.
Wow. So. That's something to see. You have to make a multimedia tour like Crispin Glover does with his movie. You know, he does the slideshow, and then he does I'm sure you've seen it in some incarnation. He's been touring with it for 14, 15 years now, and finally finished it.
I've seen it. I've seen it over and over and over again. And that movie of his, I saw like probably 14 different versions of that, you know.
Yeah, I was lucky to see it 2 different years in a row, but I didn't see the earlier incarnations. I know it's probably completely different. Were you ever asked to appear in that movie? What is it? Or at all?
No, he wanted me to be in a movie that he wanted there to be 3 of these movies, and I guess he's done 2 of them, and there's a third one where Crispin Glover, I think, gets a job in a thrift store so he can steal a television set, and the thrift store is entirely run by Mongoloids.
Probably the same cast from the first 2.
Yeah. Some of them might be the same. I'm not sure.
So the third one hasn't been made yet. I think the
third one hasn't been made yet, unless he's working on it over in Prague or whatever.
Right, but he said at some time that he was thinking about you for a part in the 3rd edition of this.
Well, he said he wanted to use me someplace. I think it was this, because he saw this Australian movie I did, Pearls Before Swine, and he said, "Wow, I didn't know Boyd could act. I'll have to use him in something. That's great." So, you know, I'm waiting. I'm waiting on the call. I'll be there if it ever happens.
Would you drop everything to go to Prague to film this?
Well, you mean stop watching episodes of the Highway Patrol and Mr. Ed?
Yes, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't miss a chance to make history like that on a scale of that. That would be not something to pass up. What did you think of the first 2 movies you made?
Well, I've only seen What Is It? I haven't seen the second one, which is like a kind of like weird murder.
I think
thing?
Yeah, it's the main guy from the first one, but now he's involved with some girl and things go wrong. I think it's called It's Fine and Everything Is Fine. I forgot what the name of it. He toured here about 3 years ago with it, and we saw it.
Yeah, the last time he was here, he did the slideshow, and I think he showed the movie or something, and he said that he was coming around in another 6 months to show that one. So I've been waiting on that.
But what would you say about the first one? Did you enjoy it at all? Or
oh God, yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was one of the best things I've ever seen. But I've seen like 13 different versions of it. So, oops, I'm sorry, Pussycat. I disturbed the cat.
Oh, don't disturb the cats. Yeah, it was very disturbing for me. I'd seen Sallow, 120 Days of Sodom, and I thought that Crispin's film was more disturbing than that. Just to me, that's just personal taste. So.
Yeah, well, the first one I saw, it just opened up with that rape sequence and the music from Clockwork Orange, and that he does these intense questions with the people who view these things, and he finds out what disturbs them, what they don't like, and most people said they would have liked the movie except starting off with a rape sequence just like rubbed them the wrong way, and then it made it so that they didn't like anything else. So he took that scene. Initially, he removed it entirely, but then eventually, so many people complained, like that was my favorite scene. That he restored it, but he put it later on into the film.
Oh my God!
And then a lot of people were upset by him pouring salt on snails. So he filmed the whole scene where he's at a Buddhist monastery with all these snails going on a silk pillow, and there's some Mongoloid going, "Thank you, snails. Thank you for giving your life for art." And everybody was upset by the snails, but then he put them in one extra scene, and then it's like, you're cool with it.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of remember that. There's a lot of things that stick out. I don't quite remember the whole storyline, but there's a lot of snail giving their lives for art throughout that movie. Yeah, snails and slugs, and a lot of very strange women dressed up in weird costumes towards the end. And I don't know. I don't know. That's. I think seeing it once is enough for me, though.
And do you remember the end sequence where they're showing the titles and Lou Rawls is singing a song?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, well, maybe you didn't see the version with that in it, but there was this Lou Rawls scopatone where he's going down these stairs singing, and they look just like the stairs at Crispin's house. And that house has, for decades, it's been rented out for movies, it's been rented out for commercials, all sorts of things. So I one time saw that movie and I said, "Hey, have you ever seen this Lou Rawls movie, Scopatone? Because I'm sure it was filmed in your house." He said, you were kidding. I'd love to see that. So I sent it to him, and I gave him the number of the guy he could buy a Scopatone from, and he said it wasn't his house, but it looked so much like the sequences of his house from What Is It, that he used the titles at the end of the film anyway.
So he edited it in, sort of, and it blended together, looking like everything else that was in there at the end.
Yeah.
No, I might have to watch the end again just to see that. But the only way you can see it is if he comes to town, because he's very protective of it and won't release it on DVD at all because he knows it'll get bootlegged and then he won't have anything to travel with. There was one kid in Oberlin, Ohio that was I think he had a cell phone camera. And he came out on stage and grabbed the kid's camera out of his hand and said, he's like, I told no one's allowed to have anything. And he kept it for the whole movie, and then he gave it back to him at the end. It was very funny. It was a one-time thing I saw. I was very shocked by it. He just grabbed the kid's phone out of his hand and said, you're not allowed to, so it was very funny.
Yeah, well, one of the producers of that film lives someplace here in Colorado, so he gave a gal I know, he gave a copy of one of the early edits of What Is It? And somehow Crispin Glover, found out she had it, and the phone rings and it's Crispin going, "I've been told you have a copy of my film. Please put it in the mail and send it to me." And she did. I mean, he was just really nervous that anybody would have a copy, see it before it was exactly ready.
Right, and we don't. That might outlive every single person listening right now. That date when it's finally ready to be put on DVD. Well, thanks for.
It's ready. I just don't think he's going to put it on DVD. I don't know if he's ever going to put it on DVD.
Last thing, would you, involving Crispin Glover, would you be up to doing some recording on his second overdue album?
Yeah, what? Are you asking me? You're going to send this information to Crispin?
Oh, yeah, I'm a first-name basis. No, I'm just wondering, because it seems like there should be some kind of collaboration musically between you two, at least on one project.
Yeah, I would do that. I would do that in a heartbeat. And I introduced Crispin to Marilyn Manson at the Sunset Hyatt House, and immediately Manson was like, "We've got to record something. I'll produce your next album, and so they're both like, and this was years ago. This was years and years and years ago, and they want to do it, but they're both so busy,
Busy.
They could never come up with time to
Beavers.
do it.
Thanks, Boyd. I'm going to let you get back to, what's that show? Dark Highway Patrol?
Highway Patrol.
Just Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
I would like to leave on that theme, but I don't have YouTube ready right now, so we're going to have to leave on something from God and Beast album from '97. Any song you like on there that you can remember?
God and Beast.
There's Total War remake, Phoenix, Out remake, Lucifer, The Law, Coming Forth, Millstones, God and Beast. It's a 9-song album.
The Out.
That was one of my favorites. That was, I think, the first song I played on the air by the group. And this is a remake of Out, right?
Yeah. It's a studio version, whereas the first version was a live version.
Okay, thanks for staying up late and entertaining some people in Cleveland, Ohio, with different tastes than the normal procedure that's usually played on here.
Well, thanks for having me.
No problem, Boyd.
Great.
We'll talk to you after in a few months and get a recap on your Russian experience.
All right.
That which disturbs your soul, you must not suffer. Cast it out.